Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching What If Kid Naruto was the last of the vampire clan. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
In the village of Hidden in the Leaves, everyone was simply going about their daily lives on a sunny day. Nothing could disturb the tranquility of the moment. While the majority of people were content with the tranquility, some members of the ninja population wished for something exciting to occur, but they would later regret their wish. Two Junins were stranded on guard duty at the southern end of the village, keeping an eye out for any indications of enemy ninjas who might arrive at any moment and begin wreaking havoc. Yeah, exactly. All Junin wanted was for their shift to be over so they could get home. The other Junin simply looked at her partner and said, "Kakashi, what are you in that perverted book of yours?" Kakashi simply stared at her and said, "You were complaining about that position from you chapter 5 we were doing last night, Rin-chan." At this point, Rin's entire face turned red, and there was a loud slapping sound throughout Konoha. "I thought we agreed that we never let that out of bedroom," Rin said, shackling him back and forth until Kakashi noticed a small boy staring at them. "Rin. What?" Kakashi then gestured to the boy in the middle of the road, who was only wearing a black pair of shorts, a euro. No shoes, no shirt, a euro. And there were also signs of blood dripping from his mouth and what appeared to be a cross where his heart was. "Hey kid, are you okay?" Rin asked, glancing at the boy for any signs of injury. "Thirsty?" the boy whispered, but Rin had heard him and turned to Kakashi. "Bring some water over, Kakashi," Rin said, and he did as instructed, giving the child a bottle of water, which he began to drink before spitting it out and tossing the bottle to the ground. "Thirsty?" Rin repeated. The child claimed to be thirsty, but Rin and Kakashi were perplexed. "If you're thirsty and don't want water, what do you do then?" the boy asked, pointing to Rin's wrist. Rin brought it to his face, and he grabbed it. He brought it to his mouth, opening it to reveal a full row of teeth and two sharp fangs on the top row. Rin screamed and jerked her hand away from the boy as he bit down on her wrist, piercing the skin before she could do anything. Kakashi noticed two bloody holes where Rin had bitten down on his wrist. "Why did you do that, you little bastard? What's wrong with you?" Kakashi yelled at the boy, furious at what he had done. The boy appeared frightened and began shackling, saying, "Thirsty," once more as if it were insignificant. However, this infuriated Kakashi, who then pulled out a kunai and prepared to stab the boy until Rin intervened. "Is that all you have to say? You hurt Rin. How about I put two holes into you?" Kakashi asked. At the words, Kakashi stopped. "He's just a kid. You should be ashamed of yourself." Kakashi got up and Rin turned to face the boy who was holding her wrists. "Are you still thirsty?" Rin asked, and the boy simply stared at her before grinning and licking up all the blood that had spilled from the wound before stopping with a last lick. After finishing, he gave the two ninjas a final lick and grinned. Rin quickly realized that her wound was no longer hurting and checked to make sure it was healed. Rin looked at the boy who was grinning and said, "All done." The boy simply nodded, indicating that he understood what the two were saying. Rin looked down at the boy once more and asked, "Can you understand what I'm saying?" He shook his head up and down, asking, "Can you talk? What can you say?" "Thirsty." And the two of them were sweating. "Anything else?" Rin asked. "Naruto." Rin nodded and turned to face Naruto. "Can you come with us, Naruto?" Kakashi and Rin exchanged glances before the boy nodded, took Rin's hand, and followed the two ninjas through the village, doing everything in his power to prevent Naruto from straying. They went directly to the Kage's office after arriving at the Hokage tower. "Greetings, Hokage." "Sama." The elderly Hokage grinned at the two people in front of him and said, "Kakashi, Rin, what can I do for you?" The third then noticed a small boy with blue eyes and blonde hair standing next to Rin. "And who is this?" Rin replied, "This is Naruto. Say hello, Naruto." Naruto simply looked at the village leader, Jisan. Naruto's response startled both ninja. "Naruto, you shouldn't say things like that, it's not polite," Rin said in a reprimand. Sarutobi simply stared at the two, imagining the reaction of a mother and son. Naruto simply looked down at the floor and said, "Sorry." Rin couldn't contain her anger and said, "It's okay." "So where did you find young Naruto?" Kakashi came forward. Well, we doing guard duty and chatting, then noticed Naruto just standing there with traces of blood coming out of his mouth. Rin went to check on him to see if he was alright. He kept saying he was thirsty and I gave him some water. But he spit it out and kept screaming thirsty. We didn't know what to do until he pointed to Rin's wrist. She held it out and before we knew it he bit her. Rin jerked her hand away and Iyayuro tried to attack him. Kakashi lowered her head in shame. Sarutobi's eyes almost dropped out when he heard, but Rin stopped me and gave him her wrist, and Naruto then started to drink her blood. Once Naruto finished, he gave Rin's wrist one last lick and the wound was healed. Sarutobi wasn't sure what to think when Kakashi finished, but then he noticed the mark on Naruto's chest. "Naruto, come here for a minute." Naruto looked at Rin, who nodded her head, and he approached Sarutobi, who looked at the cross on his chest. It couldn't be that clan is nothing but legends, Sarutobi thought. When Naruto followed instructions to open your mouth, Sarutobi noticed the fangs and had to make one more check. The two nodded and departed after saying, "Kakashi, Rin, we need to go to the hospital, I must check something." When the nurses saw the Hokage, they bowed in respect, saying, "Greetings, Hokage. Sama. What brings you here?" The Hokage simply grinned at the nurse and said, "I need a liter of blood, I wish to test something." "Of course, Hokage. Sama," she said, and walked away. The three waited in the lobby for the nurse to bring the blood, and everything was quiet until, "Hey Pop." Then, everyone turned to see Yuhi Kurenai and Sarutobi Asuma. "Asuma, what are you doing here?" "Me and Kurenai were sparring and we went a little overboard and I had to come here," Kurenai said, noticing Naruto lying on Rin's arm. "This is Naruto, say hello Naruto." Naruto looked at the two and said, "Hello pretty eyes, smoker." This made Sarutobi laugh aloud, but it made everyone turn to see Anko, Rin's old friend. "Anko, over here." Anko approached Rin after noticing her and asked, "Hey Rin, how have you been?" "Good, and you?" "Alright, just visiting Iruka." At this point, Anko blushed because she was in love with the guy. She then noticed the kid and said, "So who's the Kozo, you and Kakashi finally getting some kids?" Which made both ninja blush. "No, we found him outside, it's a long story," Anko said, sitting on the bench. After everyone had recovered from their shock, Anko decided to change the topic. "So what's he call you to? He hasn't addressed us as anything." Naruto heard Rin say, "Kasen." Rin was a little surprised by this, but she smiled and gave him a hug. Rin then explained how they found Naruto and how he had drunk Rin's blood. "What about me, Naruto?" Kakashi asked, feeling a little excluded. "Hentai Tucson," Naruto said, and everyone, including Kakashi, started laughing. Naruto yelled, "Thirsty," at the nurse as she soon arrived with a liter of blood, and Rin held him back while the nurse handed the blood to the Hokage. Sarutobi tore open the bag, put a straw inside, and gave it to Naruto. However, Rin stopped him before he could take a sip, saying, "Naruto, say thank you." He then proceeded to drink through the straw, and despite how disgusting it looked, Naruto's expression while drinking was rather endearing. After finishing, he yawned, laid on Rin's arm, and quickly dozed off. Sarutobi knew it, there was no denying it now. "So the legends are true." Everyone looked at the Hokage. "What legends are that?" Rin asked. "There was once a clan of ninja that feed off the blood of humans, had the ability to travel at incredible speeds and have monsters' strength and skill. These beings were called the Vampire Clan." At this everyone was stunned. They had heard the stories but never really mind them. There's more. It is said that if all but one clan member was left alive, a black cross would be placed on his heart, protecting him from the sun and better control of his thirst. Rin looked at Naruto and held him tight. "I don't care, he's just a little boy, not some monster, so don't even think of hurting him." Sarutobi just smiled, knowing Rin would never hurt a child. Rin. "Normally I would a child to the orphanage since he didn't have any guardians to look after him, but since Naruto is different case, I'm going to offer you the chance to adopt Naruto." "I'll take it," Rin said in less than a heartbeat, but Kakashi wasn't so sure, at least until he felt a demonic killer intent coming from Rin. "Well Kakashi. Kuunnn. Kakashi knew that he had to choose between a life or death situation. "Okay." And with that, Naruto became the son of Kakashi and Rin. Kakashi carried Naruto on his back after everyone had gone home for the night. When he and Rin arrived at their apartment, they immediately went to bed, with Kakashi on the left, Rin on the right, and their new son Naruto in the center. The future appeared to be very bright. A new morning had appeared over the Kano, and a new day to the family of Naruto as he lay next to Rin, who soon woke up due to the morning light. She looked around and couldn't find Kakashi anywhere, only seeing Naruto messy blonde hair laying on her chest, sleeping soundly, looking so innocent. She gently nudged his head. "Naruto-kun, it's time to wake up." Naruto opened his eyes, showing his bright blue orbs. "Morning, Kasen." Rin smiled at him. "Morning, Naruto-kun, did you sleep well?" Naruto nodded his head up and down. "Naruto, have you seen Kakashi? Hentai Tucson?" Rin chuckled at the name he had given Kakashi. "Yes, Naruto-kun, hentai Tucson." He just moved his head left and right saying no and stared sniffing the air. Thirsty. He simply said and left the bedroom and Rin followed seeing Kakashi in the kitchen cooking what looks like eggs, toast, steak, J, and Boudic Blanc, blood sausage, for Naruto along with a package of 00 negative blood. Rin was speechless. Kakashi, did you do all this for us? Kakashi turned and you could tell he was smiling under his mask. No problem, now let's eat. Everyone was enjoying the meal in front of them and the taste, but Kakashi had another reason for making breakfast, which was to find out what Naruto wanted to eat because they couldn't just give him blood from a package. You want some bread, Naruto? Kun? Rin asked. Yes. Rin gave Naruto some toast, hoping he would just eat it until he poured some of the blood from the package onto it and took a bite out of it. Both Rin and Kakashi perspired when they saw this. Well, at least we know a way to get him to eat a salad, Kakashi said with a chuckle. Hey Kakashi, I'm taking Naruto to the park today and I'll be back later, she said, but Kakashi interrupted, asking, are you sure that's a good idea? I mean, what if he decides that he's thirsty around a bunch of kids he doesn't like? Rin responded, Kakashi, he needs to be around children his own age, he deserves a happy childhood like everybody else. Kakashi protested, but Rin interrupted, no buts Kakashi, and unless you want to see mine again you'll move now. It didn't take Kakashi long to decide. Okay, have fun, and Rin and Naruto departed. That woman is scary, but I love her, Kakashi thought before washing the dishes. While holding hands, Naruto and Rin strolled through the village grinning. Naruto turned to face his mother and said, we need to go over some rules while we are at the park, okay? He grinned at her and said, okay Kasen. Rin then started to explain, okay, first no biting people for blood, second no attacking people, and third no killing, understand? Naruto nodded, and Rin simply grinned back at him. The two soon arrived and saw kids everywhere playing on the equipment, running around tagging one another and kicking around a ball. Naruto looked around not really sure what to do before he met Rin and Kakashi. He never tried to play with other kids, he was always looking for ways to quench his thirst until now. He looked around and saw many kids forming a circle shouting at something, so he went to check it and saw that a bunch of boys a few years older and the leader being a genin were picking on three girls. One was doing her best to protect two other girls. She had blonde hair and blue eyes, but her hair was a little lighter than his. Then there was the girl who had pink hair and green eyes and covering her face like something was about to be thrown about at her. Then the last one really caught his eye was a girl about his age with indigo hair and white eyes and was crying her eyes out begging for the boys to stop, but nothing was working. Now Naruto didn't understand much about the world, but the one thing he did know was that you were never to treat girls like that, and that was pissing him off. The group leader pulled out a kunai and said, hey guys, take out the blonde bitch and hold her down so we can have some real fun with the other freaks. Some of the boys said, right boss, as they held down the blonde girl, and the genin glanced at the other two. So what should I do first? Should I write the word whore on that big forehead on the pick bitch, or should I take the eyes of the Hyuga slut? What to do him? The genin approached the Hyuga while preventing the kunai from scratching her eye, saying, I think I'll make the Hyuga bitch beg first. So let's hear you beg for your life, Hyuga bitch. Go on, beg for it bitch. The girl did nothing. Okay. Then I guess I'll just cut out those pretty little eyes of yours out then. He raised the blade and started to bring it down and would have priced her eyes if someone didn't grab the genin arm, surprising everyone. Who the fuck are you? Let go of my arm, you little bastard. But Naruto didn't let go, instead he just added pressure to the genin's arm. It wasn't long before everyone could hear the bones in his arm begin to break, and after that the arm was broken and the bone had priced through the skin and blood gushed out the wound. Ah, you bastard, I'll kill you, I'll fukingk. The genin didn't finish his sentence because Naruto grabbed his throat and lifted him up into the air and then threw him right into a tree. The genin gasped as blood soot out of his mouth and he fell unconscious. The other bullies saw this and were about to jump Naruto until they saw his eyes turn blood red and black chakra surrounded him. The boys were frozen in fear and didn't run until Naruto said, run, and they were all gone. Once all the boys had left, Naruto's eyes turned back to white and blue and the black chakra faded away. He looked at the three girls and could see the fear in their eyes, and when he offered a hand to help the blonde and the pink-haired girl back away, but the Hyuga wasn't as scared of what just happened. She accepted his help. Thank you. Naruto just smiled. M.MYN.N. Name is HH. Hyuga H. Hinata. Naruto just stared her and smiled. Sunshine. He said out loud, causing Hinata to blush 10 different kinds of red. At hearing this, the other two girls wanted to jump the boy for making fun of their friend's name, but remembering what he could do they decided not to. The one with pink stepped forward. Hello, my name is Haruno Sakura. Naruto looked at her with a smile. Cherry Blossom. Sakura blushed at the name. Thanks. Then the blonde stepped forward. My name's Yamanaka Ino. Naruto looked at her, smiled. Blue eyes. Ino looked at him, thinking that he was going to make fun of her name. So who are you anyway? Naruto just answered. Naruto. Ino looked at Naruto. Naruto, huh? Well, thank for helping. Yeah, thanks. Was Sakura reply. T. Thank you, Naruto.kun. Naruto just kept smiling at them and asked at random. Friends? He asked while all three looked at him. What? He repeated himself. Friends? He said again. All was quiet until Sakura answered. I guess we can be friends as long as you don't mind your friends being girls. Naruto just looked at her confused. Never mind, let's go and have some fun, they all nodded. The day was well spent. They all laughed and played games that kids play at the age where there is nothing to worry about. Then they noticed it was getting late and everyone's parents would be showing up soon. Hinata-chan. Everyone turned around and saw a woman that looked a little like Hinata but taller and long hair and was carrying a baby. Hinata, it's time to go home. Tell your two friends goodbye. And a Euro, who's the boy and why do you have bruises? Naruto just looked at the woman who was most likely Hinata's mother and replied to her. Naruto. Hinata's mother looked at him and could tell even without her Byakugan that this boy was powerful. Soon there was the voices of calling for Sakura and Ino, and then their parents arrived and saw Naruto, wondering who this boy was until... Naruto, what the hell is the matter with you? This scared the kids and the adults, who soon recognized it to be Rin. Naruto was scared stiff. He couldn't move. His cousin was mad at him about something, but what he was only trying to help. Rin walked over to Naruto and glared right at him. What the hell? I leave you alone for one day and you break a person's arm and nearly kill them. I thought we had an understanding when it came to killing and drinking blood, damn it. Now Naruto was really scared. His cousin was never this angry and it scared him, and he didn't know what to do until he saw Ino step forward. Hey, what's your problem anyway? If it wasn't for Naruto, that poor genin you're so worried about would have put a kunai into Hinata's eyes. The adults were rendered speechless by this. And what are you, his mother or something? Rin looked at her and said, hi. The children were shocked because Naruto didn't resemble her at all. Alright, let's start at the beginning. So Ino, Sakura and Hinata explained what happened to the bullies picking a fight with them, and then the genin going too far as to use his skills against them. Then they held Ino down and he was going to write horror on Sakura's forehead with a kunai and was going to gauge Hinata's eyes because she was a Hyuga. That's when Naruto appeared. How he stopped his arm, broke it in two, picked him off the ground by the throat and throw him into a tree, then used black chakra so scare the others off. After hearing this, all the adults were shocked at hearing this, the boy's strength, the black chakra, and then there was the drinking of blood. They had to know. Hey Rin, what did you mean by drinking blood anyway? Sakura's mother asked. Well, Naruto needs to drink human blood to stay healthy. Everyone turned pale white but got over it. Okay, weirder things have happened, I guess. Each parent turned to Naruto and bowed. Thank you, Naruto. Sama. Naruto just kept smiling. Hinata, can you take Hanabi for a second? Hinata did and took her baby sister. Hinata's mother walked over to Naruto, got down to his level and hugged him, felt tear falling from her eyes. Thank you so much. I don't what I would have done if anything happened to my daughter, so thank you. Hinata walked over holding her sister tightly, but enough for Naruto to get a look. She was so small and she had long hair for her age and a cute face. Naruto got a closer look and Hanabi stared at him. He just smiled and showed his fangs. At seeing this, Hanabi started to laugh and reached for his hair but missed. No Hanabi, no pulling hair, okay. Hinata Siad. Hanabi just squealed with laughter. Well, we should get going. My husband will start to worry. Good seeing you, Rin, and it was a pleasure meeting you. As Hinata and her mother stared leaving, Hinata turned around and ran up to Naruto. Planted a kiss on his right cheek, causing both kids to blush and both parents to wish they had a camera. You two make such a cute couple. When should we expect grandchildren? Rin joked, causing both kids to turn burning red. Kazan. Naruto shouted. When Naruto and Rin arrived home, Kakashi noticed that Naruto was still red. Hey Naruto, are you sick? You're awfully red. Rin then smirked and said, he's just a little embarrassed about his little girlfriend, aren't you, Naruto-kun? Naruto just stared at the ground, refusing to make eye contact. So little Naruto has a girlfriend. Who is she? Naruto mumbled something, but Kakashi couldn't hear it. What was that? Kakashi's eyes widened. Well, I guess it's time for the talk, Rin said. No, not yet. Naruto, go get ready for bed. Naruto changed, and Rin turned to Kakashi. After telling Kakashi what had happened with Naruto at the park, Rin started to worry about Kakashi's reaction. You know we're going to have to explain this to the Hokage, Kakashi said, glancing at her. He might take Naruto away and say we're not suitable to be his parents, or he might be put to death for posing a threat to the village, or worse, he might be placed in Danzo's root program. Rin's eyes shook when she heard the last line because she knew that if Danzo got hold of Naruto, he would turn into a heartless killing machine. The thought made Rin cry. Rin and Kakashi didn't realize that two blues were observing them and listening to what was happening while they talked about what they would have to do. Naruto was aware that he was to blame for the current situation. Turning toward the window, Naruto leapt to the village's next rooftop and made his way to what he knew to be the Hokage Tower. Sarutobi spent the last of the day working late on paperwork, what else is new, completing the remaining tasks, and overcoming the headache from today's council meeting involving Naruto and one of the genins, who was also the pampered son of a council member. When Sarutobi heard a light tapping at his office window just before he went to bed, he saw Naruto standing on the ledge and peering in. Naruto looked at the ground and said, "Noa Euro Hadia Euromi," as tears started to fall from his eyes. Sarutobi opened the window and let the boy in. "Naruto, what are you doing here at this hour? Rin and Kakashi are going to be worried sick." "Naruto, why do you think Rin and Kakashi hate you?" Sarutobi asked, looking down at the boy and holding him in his arms while allowing him to cry into his shoulder. Naruto simply stared at the elderly man and said, "Kasana Euro Otasana Euro Mata Euro Geta Euro Rida Euro Mea Euro Thinka Euro Bad," as more tears streamed from his eyes. Naruto nodded, confirming what the Hokage was thinking. "Naruto, I don't think Rin and Kakashi hate you. I think they're afraid that something might happen to you because other people will think that they're not good enough to take care of you," Sarutobi asked Naruto, knowing what he was talking about. As the Hokage held him and rubbed his back, Naruto became terrified and started to panic. "Noa Euro no leave Kasana Euro no leave Otasana Euro I Gooda Euro no Alwana Euro I good," he said, sobbing more and more. "Shush, it's okay, Naruto. I swear I will make sure that no one takes you away, okay," he said, nodding. "Well, Naruto, it's late and I'm sure Kakashi and Rin are worried sick. Let's get you home," said Sarutobi, releasing Naruto. Naruto grinned at the elderly man, took his hand, and went home. Rin and Kakashi had just finished talking when Naruto left, so Rin went to see how he was doing. "Hey Naruto, are you asleep?" Rin asked, looking around the bedroom, but he was nowhere to be seen. "Naruto, if you're hiding, the game is over." "Naruto, this isn't funny, come out right now." Still no sign of him. Then she noticed the window was open. "Kami no, Kakashi." Rin looked at Kakashi as he ran into the room and asked, "What is it?" Rin said in a panicked voice, "Naruto's gone. I think he heard us, and when I came in I saw the window open and I know that it was closed before he must have run away. He could get hurt. We have to do something." "Rin, I know how you fell, but this isn't a time to panic." Kakashi could see that she was afraid, and even he was at first. At first, he didn't think of Naruto as a son, but as he spent more time with him, he started to feel the same attachment that Rin did. Rin was simply staring at him. "Not a time to panic. What do you mean not a time to panic? Naruto is out there all alone in the middle of night, all alone, where he could get hurt or raped by some sick bastard or a Euro killed," Rin said as she creaked. "And you don't even care. You don't care at all. You ever think about is yourself. All you ever care about is..." Kakashi interrupted her. Rin, I understand how you feel about Naruto, believe me. I see him as a son as well and I love him too. But running off in a panic isn't going to help the situation," she said, fearing that this would be the first time he was this angry with her. She said, "Kakashi, But Kakashi cut her off again, saying, "Forget it Rin, you were just worried about him, but I have a feeling he went to the Hokage for help and they should be back soon." Rin could see the logic in his words and felt terrible about what she had said earlier. "The Hokage, how do you know that he went to him?" Rin asked, simply staring at him. "Where else did we turn to as kids for help?" Kakashi asked, laughing, but Rin wasn't sure, saying, "I'm not so s." Then there was a knock at the front door, and Rin screamed before instantly vanishing, leaving Kakashi to wonder. She beat Sensei in a race with her speed. Hoping it was her little boy, Naruto, Rin ran straight to the front door. When she saw the Hokage's elderly face, she screamed, "Oh Hokage! Sama, it's just you." Rin was about to cry again when she heard, "Kasen." Rin looked down, hoped that Naruto would return to her eyes, and then she screamed and gave Naruto a bone-crushing hug. "It's okay, Naruto-kun, but next time you need to talk about something, come to me or Kakashi. We're here for you because we love you," Rin said, her eyes welling with tears as she held her son in her arms. Naruto, were you? Kakashi and I were worried sick about you. Do you realize that you could have been hurt or killed? Naruto heard all of this and could almost feel his mother's pain. Kasuna, you're sorry. Naruto simply looked at her and grinned. The Hokage's response was, today there was a council meeting about what happened in the park between Naruto and the genin he fought. Sarutobi grinned, but he knew he had to bring up the subject. Rin, Naruto, Kakashi looked at him, unsure of what to do next. The Hokage simply sighed as Kakashi looked at him anxiously and asked, what's the problem, Hokage? Sama. The council is aware of what Naruto did, and one of Tama Yuro, the father of the boy he injured a Yuro, is requesting blood, while others want him dead because they think that his black chakra and his monster's strength and speed make him appear like a threat or a weapon. The Hokage spoke up again, saying, the next council meeting is also about Naruto and what must be done, and he must attend as well as you too. Kakashi and Rin weren't under too much supervision because they knew this was going to happen. After exchanging glances, they said, hi, Hokage, Sama. Kakashi and Rin looked down and saw that Naruto was barely awake. They grinned and said goodnight to the Hokage before getting ready for bed and falling asleep. The Hokage simply looked at the two and saw the sadness on their faces and said, well, discuss this more in the morning right now. It looks like you two could use some rest and so does Naruto. When morning finally arrived, the three were enjoying a modest breakfast as Naruto was wrapping up his B-positive package when an Anbu member knocked on the front door and said, Hokage. Sama, please make an appearance at the council meeting. He then disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Rin and Kakashi exchanged glances before Kakashi sighed and said, let's go. Fearing the worst for their small family, the three members of the family made their way to the Hokage tower. The Hokage said, we all know why we are here, so let's go over what we should do for young boy, as soon as the meeting began after entering the council chamber. The thing hurt my son, it won't be long before that demon starts attacking us one by one. He will be the end of this village, it must be executed. The genin's father, who was on the civilian portion of the council and had a rat-like face, said first. Those council members who agreed with Rat Face on personal gains for themselves supported him while the other council members listened to his tirades. The ninja members of the council disagreed with Rat Face, though, because they had heard about what the child was going to do to Hyuga Hinata, whose eyes would have been severed if Naruto hadn't intervened, and Haruno Sakura, whose mother was on the civilian side of the council. And that's why the monster must be killed before it does any more damage. Rat Face concluded his brief speech, and he sat down, certain that he would exact revenge on Naruto. The Hokage subsequently rose to his feet. Your speech was a Euro impressive Nazumi-san. It explains why you think Naruto is a danger to others, but that still doesn't explain of what got him into this little mess. The Hokage cleared his throat and said, well, to really understand everything that happened, we must ask the potential victims that we could have had. Would you three come in? Everyone was staring at him, wondering what he was up to. After Sakura, Ino, and Hinata entered through the council doors, Naruto couldn't help but yell, Cherry Blossom, Blondie, Hinata. Chan, as soon as he saw his friends enter. Sakura and Ino turned to smile at their friends, but Hinata blushed when Naruto called her Hinata. Chan, something Hinata's father noticed. The Hokage asked the three girls, do you know why you are here? Before acknowledging their presence. In response, the trio said, hi, Hokage, Sama. The girls explained how they had gone to the park to play when the genin appeared and began to harass and threaten them. Ino stood up for them, and the other boys held her down while Rat Face's son threatened to write horror into Sakura's head and remove Hinata's eyes. The Hokage nodded his head and said, good, now tell what happened yesterday before Naruto showed up. Rat Face erupted in rage as they were done, saying, lies, all lies. There is no way my son would do such a thing. This is just a way for these three whores to protect their demon lover. How dare you call my daughter a whore? You rat-face fucker. Your son has been nothing but trouble since he became genin, Sakura's mother said as she got to her feet. Watch what you say, peasant, or you will see why the Jukin has made the Hyuga clan famous, said Hyuga Hiashi as he rose to his feet, his Byakugan activated. With a kunai in his hand, Inoichi Yamanaka appeared prepared to spill blood in retaliation for his daughter's insult. However, before anyone could take any action, Naruto had moved forward. The Hokage then turned to face him and asked, Naruto, do you have anything to say? Naruto simply grinned and then held out his hand, biting into it until the flesh tore off and blood dripped from it. Everyone in the council room was shocked by this action, especially Rin and Hinata, who would have rushed to his aid but were restrained by Kakashi, Sakura, and Ino. After getting covered in blood, Naruto put his hand on the ground, closed his eyes, and started chanting a language they could comprehend. The blood beneath his hand started to flow in a circle, moving left and right. As soon as the circle was finished, Naruto got up and demonstrated that his hand was fully healed. The Hokage was about to ask Naruto what he had done when two black flames appeared at opposite ends of the circle and started to follow the blood trail, turning the bloody circle into a black, fiery circle. As if that weren't enough, an image started to emerge. It showed Rin and Kakashi having a conversation over breakfast, followed by Rin and Naruto walking to the park to fight the girls and the genin after he threatened them and did what Naruto had done to him. After the image was finished, the flames went out, and everyone simply stood there watching a video of someone's memories. Even the more doubtful people now trusted him. "Well, I don't think we need any more evidence," the Hokage said with a smile. "Kakashi, would you please do us the honor of having Nuzumi removed from the council?" The Hokage turned to Kakashi. Kakashi grinned. "With pleasure, Hokage. Sama," while wearing his mask. Nuzumi made an unsuccessful attempt to defend himself before Kakashi threw him out the council door after pouting him in the stomach. After finishing that, Hokage got up and said, "Okay, this meeting is over." The children were chatting among themselves as the council cleared out, awestruck by what Naruto had accomplished and asking if he could teach them effectively. Ino was asking the others if they were too shy to do so. With a frown, Naruto said, "Sorry, can't learn." He wanted to teach them what he did, but something inside him told him that was impossible. Sakura responded to him by saying, "It's okay, Naruto. You have your reason for not teaching us. Just be there for us when we need you." The girls appeared disappointed but moved on. Hinata, on the other hand, was in awe of what Naruto could accomplish and was making every effort to look him in the eye without blushing, while Ino was a little annoyed that she couldn't learn to do something cool like that. The voice said, "Naruto. Sama." Naruto turned to see it was Hyuga Hiashi, who studied Naruto before responding, "Naruto. Sama, I would like you for protecting my daughter Arigato, blowing." With a bow, Naruto gave the complicate back, saying, "Arigato Hyuga, Sama." When Hinata saw this, she was stunned because her father had never shown much regard for anyone who wasn't a member of their clan. She grinned. "Naruto. Sama, as a thank you for your actions, I would be honored if your family would join us for dinner tonight," Hiashi said once he had stood up. Unsure of what to say, Naruto turned to face Hiashi and said, "We accept your invitation, Hiashi, Sama." He first sought his parents' approval, which he received. As Hinata heard this, she became even more flushed as she considered what was about to happen. Naruto-kun is going to be coming to my house. So Hinata looks like Naruto's coming to your house for dinner. Are you going to kiss him on the lips or maybe give him a special dessert? Ino turned to Hinata and smiled evilly. She winked at the flushed girl. Sakura attempted to defend her friend by saying, "Ino, be nice." "Oh come on Sakura, I'm just having a little fun and besides we can all look back at this with a laugh when you and I are being Hinata bridesmaids at the wedding," Ino said, grinning at her. Then there was a loud thud, and everyone turned to see that Hinata had fainted and Naruto had caught her. Soon after Hinata woke up, Naruto grinned at her from just above her face while flashing his fangs. "Hinata-chan," Naruto said, and Hinata blushed and grinned back. "Hey Naruto, could you show us another cool move of yours?" Ino asked, growing weary of the whole love-debate thing. Seemingly pondering, Naruto grinned once more before turning to Hinata and picking her up in a bridal style, which made her blush even more. He then proceeded to the open window and stepped onto the ledge while gazing down at the ground below. Despite her fear of being so high, Hinata clung to Naruto because she trusted him. Before they noticed Naruto close his eyes and black chakra surround his body, concentrating mostly on his back, two black wings started to form on his back. Everyone else wasn't as certain as Hinata and was ready to stop whatever he was doing. Everyone was taken aback when the wings appeared and spread out, and they all turned to stare at Naruto, who no longer appeared to be a young boy but rather a genuine fallen angel. Naruto leapt from the ledge shortly after the wings had developed. When they hurried to the window, everyone thought they would see Hinata and Naruto dead, but instead they saw Naruto flying away from them while holding Hinata. As Rin and Kakashi pondered whether their son wished to follow in their footsteps as ninjas, everyone was in awe of this and pondered what else he could accomplish. Naruto and Hinata flew through the air for the remainder of the afternoon following the council meeting. The two children were having fun, but they weren't really paying attention because the civilians were yelling things like, "Judgment Day," and "Kami has forsaken us." They were enjoying each other's company while watching the sunset atop the Hokage monument. They were content to be by themselves as they sat atop the Yodomine Hokage's head. You would see Hinata with her head resting on Naruto's shoulder while Naruto smiled, wrapped his arms around her, and covered her with his wings. The question of who was Naruto, where he came from, who were his real parents, how he was able to do the things he could, and above all why she wanted to be by his side bothered Hinata. The fact that her heart rate would rise at the sight of his smile alone, or the fact that she would blush more than usual whenever he spoke to her, did not really make sense to her. She would have to ask her mother because none of this made sense to her, but for now, she would just enjoy spending time with her Naruto-kun. Naruto was experiencing difficulties because the Black Angel wings had consumed a significant amount of his chakra and he was beginning to feel thirsty, but Hinata was having a good time. Naruto attempted to resist, but the need for blood was becoming so overwhelming that it was nearly intolerable. Naruto was aware that his bloodlust would soon take over and he would attack someone in order to quickly quench his thirst, but Hinata-chan was the only person nearby who could provide assistance. As he lowered his head to Hinata's neck, Naruto glanced at her more closely, almost feeling the new blood coursing through her veins. While he was doing this, Hinata felt Naruto's breath on her neck, which alarmed her as she noticed that his grip was getting tighter. Hinata was more terrified than the night she was nearly abducted, but this time she was trying her hardest not to freak out. She soon discovered that it was Naruto's tongue when she started to feel something moist on her neck as well. Hinata somehow found the courage to say, Naruto-kun, what are you doing? At first, Naruto didn't respond. Instead, he simply continued to breathe down Hinata's neck before responding. Hinata. Chana thirsty must drink may drink you now. Hinata was terrified and turned to face Naruto, not expecting to see such a thing. Like that day in the park, Naruto's eyes were red, and his fangs had gotten bigger. When Hinata saw this, she was unsure of how to respond and attempted, but was unable, to break free of Naruto's hold. Naruto started laughing at Hinata's attempts to flee from him after witnessing her struggle. Before he heard anything, he tightened his grip on her and started to lower his head to her neck, ready to bite and quench his thirst. Naruto heard what sounded like sobbing and glanced up at Hinata's face, which was filled with tears and fear, just like on the day at the park. When Naruto saw this, he halted his activity and felt his thirst subside. He stepped back from Hinata and released her. Hinata then turned to face Naruto, observing the pain in his eyes and the fear and shame in his eyes as she heard him whisper something along the lines of Noa herda hinata noa herda noda likia hima noda likia the eye. Though she was still a little scared of him, Hinata approached him to check on him. When Hinata got close enough to speak with him, she asked, Naruto-kun, is something wrong, are you okay? Naruto looked up at her and continued to back away, fearing that he would try to harm her once more. Hinata. Chana stay away noa wanta herda you please stay away, he said, looking up at Hinata. Hinata simply stared at him upon hearing this, but she continued to walk until she was in front of him and grinned. Naruto was perplexed by this. Had she not heard him? Had she not grasped what he was attempting to convey? And why had she failed to recognize that he was dangerous in his condition? He then made another attempt to persuade her to see the reason, saying, Hinata. Chana stay away thirsty dangerous willa herda you. However, Hinata simply stared at him without moving away or embracing him. This left Naruto perplexed as to why she refused to listen to him and why he could sense Hinata's heart was racing for no apparent reason. Hinata was a little taken aback by Naruto's repeated attempt to get her to leave, saying, Hinata. Chana please get away noa won't herda you please let go. She responded, I won't l.et go nn Naruto.kun. I want t.to help y. Y.u so if y.un. N. Need to f. F. Feed please feed from me. Naruto didn't understand her, and he asked, why Hinata? Chan. All Hinata would say was, because why? Why? You're my f. Friend Naruto.kun. Naruto had no choice but to approach Hinata's neck and whisper, sorry, to his friend before biting down because he knew she would not release him and his thirst was growing. As Naruto bit down on Hinata's neck and began to drink her blood, she clenched her teeth and her hands in agony. After adjusting to the discomfort, Hinata accidentally used her Byakugan and glanced at Naruto's chakra coils. She could see that the coils were larger than average for his age and that they appeared to be shunting down until she noticed her blood flowing into them and they started to function once more. Upon witnessing this, Hinata realized she would need to inform the Hokage in case a similar incident occurred in the future. The sensation of Naruto removing his teeth from her neck and licking up the last of the blood dripping from the wound quickly snapped Hinata out of her reverie. She was blushing, of course, because she liked it when Naruto used his tongs. After Naruto was done, he released Hinata and turned away, avoiding eye contact. Hinata glanced at him and saw the dejected expression on his face, one of complete shame at what he had done to her. Hinata detested seeing him in this state and wanted to take any action she could. The fact that Naruto was crying now, though, was what truly affected her. The sight of it broke her heart. She approached him and said, "Naruto-kun, please stop crying. I hate to see you crying." Naruto heard this and turned to face Hinata, saying, "Ia euro hurt a euro you a euro ia euro monster a euro rat face a euro right a euro ia euro demon." Hinata snapped, "Don't ever say that you are not a monster or a demon." Naruto simply stared at her, not thinking she could possibly listen, as she went on, "You are not a monster, you are my friend, my savoir and a euro my Naruto-kun." As she did this, Naruto felt a pleasant warmth in his chest that he was unable to describe, and he returned Hinata's kindness by giving her a hug and saying, "Thanks, Hinata-chan." After letting go, the two decided to head out after realizing it was late and recalling the dinner that was scheduled for tonight. "Naruto-kun, can we walk instead?" Hinata asked Naruto as he stared to gather chakra, but he simply nodded his head in agreement when he felt something on his shoulder. Unbeknownst to him, Naruto took Hinata's hand as they started to descend the mountain, making the girl blush but enjoying the moment. "Lord Alexander must be told of this enemy of the true god," the two said, oblivious to the fact that they were being watched by someone with a dark, ambitious expression in his eyes as they descended the mountain. The Branch family was kind to Hinata because, unlike her mother, who detested the curse seal and gave it to Hinata, she was actually kind to them and refused to use it. The two children soon arrived at the Hyuga compound, where they were met by two branch member guards at the front who bowed and smiled at Hinata, saying, "Welcome home, Hinata-sama." Soon after, the guards noticed Naruto and started to question the boy's identity and why he was holding Hinata's hand. "Hinata-sama, may I ask who the boy next to you is and why he is holding your hand?" was the first question posed by the guard on the left. Hinata blushed as she looked down at her and Naruto's hand, but she refused to let go and responded, "This is Naruto-kun." This didn't help at all, as the guards only heard, "kun," activated the Byakugan, and glared at Naruto. Upon hearing the first guard's words, "Hinata-sama, please do not tell us this boy is your boyfriend." Hinata blushed, and then the guard on the right said, "Hinata-sama, you are too young to have a boyfriend." Naruto was perplexed by what the two men were discussing, but eventually, Hinata overcame her embarrassment and told the two men, "He's not my boyfriend." The two guards exchanged glances, giving one the impression that they would back off, but instead, things got worse. "How dare this boy believe he is too good to be Hinata-sama's boyfriend?" was yelled by both men, and Naruto was then attacked. The guards were moving quickly, so Hinata wanted to warn Naruto to be careful. She heard punches being thrown, and when she turned around, she saw both guards unconscious and covered in bruises. When she saw this, she turned to face Naruto, who was standing in front of both guards with a board-like expression on his face and no indication that the guards had even managed to touch him. Everyone turned to see Hiashi, Aki, Rin, and Kakashi standing in front of the compound after the loud, "What is going on out here?" was heard. Naruto smiled and waved to his parents upon seeing them, oblivious to the guards on the ground. Both guards had woken up and turned to face Hiashi and Aki, who were staring at them sternly. When both men saw this, they knelt down and begged for forgiveness. The two guards exchanged glances before responding, "We thought the boy was her boyfriend because we saw him getting too close to Hinata-sama." Hiashi simply glared down at the two men and asked, "What were you two doing attacking Naruto-sama?" As the guards concluded their explanation, Hiashi simply rubbed his temples and muttered, "Bakas." Then when Hinata-sama claimed that he wasn't her boyfriend, we assumed that the boy believed himself to be too good for Hinata-sama and a euro attacked him. Everyone entered the compound after everything had been cleared out, and they were shown the majority of the rooms, including the training grounds, gardens, lounges, and studies. Additionally, they were shown ponds containing koi fish. However, when Naruto attempted to eat one of the fish, they had to pull him away. They soon discovered Hinata's room, which was a simple space with a desk, a dresser, a bed, a few books, and a closet. One of the servants arrived after the compound had been explored and announced that dinner would be ready shortly. With the exception of Naruto, who was being held by Kakashi while he tried to run, the Hyuga family offered the restrooms so that Kakashi's family could get ready. When the Hitaki family entered the bathroom, they were all getting ready when they saw Naruto not taking off his clothes or turning to face them. In an attempt to find out what was wrong, Kakashi approached Naruto and asked, "What's wrong?" But he wouldn't respond. Thinking she could help, Rin approached him and asked, "Naruto-kun, what's wrong?" Naruto turned red and turned his head away. Rin noticed that her more famine-like parts were visible when she looked down at this. Rin laughed at this, saying, "Naruto-kun, it's okay for you to look, I'm your cousin after all." Naruto seemed unconcerned and simply said, "No Euro hentai." Rin was somewhat relieved that he wasn't a pervert, and she intended to keep it that way. Naruto bathing with your cousin doesn't make you a hentai unless you do this. Kakashi had to add, of course. At this point, he took out an orange book and handed it to Naruto. Rin was about to scream at Kakashi, but he just stared at her and said, "Rin, don't worry, it's not like he knows how to read." Kakashi had a point, though, because Naruto was fine as long as he was too young to read anything. At least that's what they believed until Naruto prodded Rin's leg to get her attention and said, "Kasuna euro, what a euro clitoris." Rin snatched up the book and ripped it to pieces while Kakashi sobbed in the corner. 3 Hyugasa euro, Hinata, Hanabi, and Akia euro were also taking baths in the other area of the compound. Aki saw the bit marks on Hinata's neck while she was holding Hanabi and washing her hair. "Where did you get that mark on your neck, Hinata-chan?" Aki asked her eldest daughter, suspicious. When Hinata heard this, she attempted, but failed, to hide the bite marks from her mother. "It that all euro hiki?" Aki asked, looking down at her young daughter, and Hinata docked beneath the water to hide her blush from her mother. While her mother yelled, "Hinata euro, you're too young to form this kind of relationship. I realize that you are infatuated with this boy, but you are still a child. What next, eloping?" Hinata remained silent, wondering why Kami detested her while her sister, for some reason, laughed. Aki began to make snap judgments when she didn't receive a response, saying, "It's from Naruto, isn't it?" All of the families gathered in the dining room once everything was prepared, and the Hyugas were clad in their customary evening attire. The Hitaki family was also dressed in formal kimonos, with Naruto wearing all black, Rin wearing green, and Kakashi wearing blue. Hiashi noticed a problem after the food was served and everyone had been seated. He noticed that Aki was glaring at Naruto. He was fidgeting in his clothes with Naruto. Hinata's cheeks were flushed. Kakashi and Rin appeared to be about to nod off. Hiashi, who dislikes being left in the dark, started to wonder what was going on. He said courteously, "Kakashi, Rin, is there a reason you appear to be so exhausted?" Hiashi was shocked that Naruto could use chakra in such a way, but he might have been using it instinctively like his other abilities. Kakashi said, "We were trying to get Naruto into some formal clothing, but he mostly refused, running around the room hanging from the ceiling with chakra ECT. How did you get him in those clothes then?" he asked, to which Rin replied, "We told him Hinata would think he was handsome." At this, Hiashi's perspiration fell and he turned to face his wife. "What is bothering you, Aki-chan?" Aki simply glared at Naruto, who became aware of this and sensed death's grip. Hiashi turned to Hinata, who continued to stare down at the table, and Aki turned to her husband. "The reason that I am so troubled is that when I was giving the girls a bath I noticed something on Hinata's neck. What I found was a hiki and was from that boy," Aki said, pointing at Naruto while continuing to glare at him. In an attempt to maintain composure, Hiashi turned to face the boy and asked, "Naruto, is this true?" Naruto avoided looking at him and merely uttered the word, "thirsty." Hiashi and Aki exchanged bewildered glances. The two elder Hyuga looked at each other in confusion until Hinata stepped in and said, "He needed it." The adults were perplexed, and Hinata went on to explain, "When Naruto-kun uses that black chakra his body began to shut down, and when I let Hime drink my blood it went to his chakra coils and he began to recharge." Rin explained, "As you know, Naruto needs blood in order to stay healthy." The young Hyuga looked at Rin and asked, "Did Naruto force you to give him your blood?" Hinata looked at Rin and said, "He tired to take it at first, but I think his thirst was controlling him. He did stop and looked in pain, so I gave him my blood." Rin sighed in relief. Kakashi took all of this information to heart, thinking, "So Naruto chakra coils don't recharge with rest like most people. He needs blood or he will suffer chakra exhaustion." "My apologies, Naruto-kun," Aki said, glancing at Naruto, who simply gave him a foxy smile and a peace sign. When the food finally arrived and everyone was ready to start eating, they saw that Naruto didn't appear to be enjoying his meal. Naruto noticed the red substance on his food, at least until Hashi said, "Naruto. Sama, we are aware of your dining habits, so we had a request of blood being brought to the kitchen." When Hashi grinned and said, "Please dig in," Naruto started to shovel his food into his mouth, which made Hinata laugh. The family dinner at the Hokage Tower was going well when something happened that would make Naruto and everyone he loves extremely dangerous in the future. Sarutobi was at the tower completing the last of his paperwork as he usually does in order to go home. The old Hokage sighed and said, "Send him in," at least until his secretary entered and said, "Hokage. Sama Alexander. Sama is here to see you, he has an appointment." A man in his 20s soon entered the room, bold, and with a rapacious expression in his eyes. He was dressed in a black robe, which is difficult to describe a euro, just picture a priest's robe. For the easily duped religious types, Alexander Lautinen was what everyone would refer to as a con artist. He was initially just interested in making money, like everyone else, but he soon started to believe his own scammer and had people lining up behind him like lapdogs. He quickly arrived in the village and started telling the people what he had to say. Most of them didn't believe him, but those who did were the ones who were looking for money. This is the reason why some council members, including one with a rat face, were expelled due to Naruto. With a fake smile, Sarutobi asked Alexander, "Alexander. Sama, what brought you here tonight?" Alexander simply turned to face the Hokage and said, "Mr. Hokage, I was a bit intrigued by the rumors of a small boy with dark powers." Sarutobi didn't like this direction, and Alexander went on, "This boy and his demonic power are a curse upon our village. By letting him stay it will affect the purity of the people in the village." Sarutobi appeared ready to nod off at this, not really paying attention to what the man had to say, adding, "So you must do something to eliminate this monster." Alexander did not appear persuaded. This thing is an abomination and an insult to the true God's will of creation. Sarutobi looked at the man as if he were a fool. Why would I want to eliminate Naruto? He has done no wrong, unless the person was doing something wrong, him or the people he cares about. Sarutobi had had enough. "Alexander. Sama, is case you are forgetting, this is a shinobi village, this is our way of life, if it displease you then leave." The two men continued to glare at each other until Alexander said, "Perhaps I did speak out of turn, forgive me," and then he started to leave. Alexander saw this and responded, "It is bad enough your shinobi continue with their act of blasphemy and condemning their souls to darkness, but by allowing this thing to live you put us all at risk." He turned to Sarutobi just before he left, saying, "By the way, the reason I am here is that one of my followers told of this boy and the young Hyuga heiress on top of the monument. There were claims that the boy tried to force the young woman to give him her blood." Sarutobi appeared anxious until Alexander said, "But he stopped himself and she let him drink from her." At this point, Sarutobi relaxed. Sarutobi appeared perplexed, but Alexander quickly added, "There was also the fact that he kept saying, 'Not like him, not like the Eye.' The Eye was something I was reading about in my early years. It was said to be a monster more powerful than God but more evil than a devil. Please keep that in mind," Sarutobi said, and Alexander departed. The old man simply rubbed his temples and said, "Who are you, Naruto, or what are you?" Sarutobi sat in a chair after he left and started to think, an eye with the power of a god but the evil of a devil and has some connection to Naruto. After some time had passed in the Leaf Village, our blonde-haired, blood-sucking hero had undergone numerous changes. Following the meal with the Hyugas, Kakashi and Rin made the decision to enroll Naruto in the academy in order to learn more about his dark chakra and to socialize with others. They first taught him how to read and write, but they were still working on his speech, and then they tried to get him to eat something bloodless, which had failed miserably after he kept throwing up his food. Shortly after that, they taught him the fundamentals of the academy, weapons throwing, taijutsu, genjutsu, and even medical jutsu, which was a huge surprise. Flashback when the door slammed open while Rin was preparing lunch for everyone. Naruto was running at full speed and screaming, "Ka-san." Startled, she ran to her son and asked, "Naruto, what's wrong?" He looked at his mother and revealed what was in his arms, which turned out to be a small bloody fox. The creature was a baby fox, only a few weeks old, with black fur and a white spot on its back. Rin took it from her son and laid it on a clean towel on the table. What really caught her attention, though, was that it was missing its right front leg and its right eye, and that both of its back legs were broken. She turned to Naruto and said, "Naruto-kun. Gomen, but there's nothing I can do." Naruto looked at her as if his world had fallen apart, and he yelled, "Fox. Die. No. Fox no die. Dying bad. You fix." Rin could tell that the little fox wouldn't last long, but she wasn't sure how to break this to Naruto, who was staring at her. Rin was shocked to hear this. Naruto had never yelled at her before, but she couldn't hold it against him and sadly remarked, "Gomen Naruto-kun, but there is nothing I can do even as a medic." Naruto instantly recalled the medical jutsu she had taught him when he heard the word medic. Rin watched Naruto approach the fox, wondering what he would do when he applied the Sha Senjutsu did, but what really caught her off guard was how effective it was a euro. The fox's wounds were healing quickly, and if that wasn't enough, its right leg and eye were also growing back. When Naruto finished, he fell backwards and was caught by Rin, who was still in shock, as he simply grinned at her with the words, "No. Die. Ka-san." "Right?" Naruto simply returned the smile, saying, "Good. Thirsty Ka-san." Rin simply laughed, saying, "I have lunch almost ready and maybe your little friend would like to have some as well." Rin simply grinned at the boy, saying, "Hello, Naruto. It won't die, you did a good thing, okay." The fox simply yaps at the sound of food and walks around as if nothing had happened. Rin put the food on the table and got Naruto a package of blood and a small bowl for the fox. She gave Naruto beef ramen, to which he was addicted, and poured blood into it. Rin said sweetly, "Here you go, little one." The fox simply stared at her, "Arigato," and ate, and Rin simply grinned and said, "No problem. Did you just talk?" Rin just perspired and laughed nervously as the fox glanced at her, "Hi," and continued to eat. Shortly after, Kakashi casually said, "Yo, Naruto," upon seeing this father, simply grinned, "Hello. Hentai Tucson." Kakashi simply laughed at Naruto's nickname for him, and then he felt a great deal of murderous intent coming from Rin. "You're late." Kakashi simply scratched the back of his head, saying, "Well, I was following up on a rumor I heard." Rin looked at him, "What kind of rumor?" Kakashi simply gave her an eye smile, that Asuma and Kurenai were seen going out on a date. Rin did nothing at first, but the moment he blinked one eye, Rin attacked him, asking, "Are you serious?" During this time, Naruto simply stared at the two and said the word, "Wired." The fox then gave Naruto a "No kidding" look and resumed eating. End flashback. It wasn't until Naruto's fox, now named Celine, bit him that he woke up at the academy, where he and a certain Nara were busy examining the inside of their eyelids when a loud, "Naruto, Shikamaru, wake up." Naruto woke up with a loud ringing in his ears, a slight pain on his hand, and a furious Iruka in his face, saying, "Need something. Big head." The other kids thought Naruto's nickname was hilarious, but Iruka didn't like it. Iruka chose to ignore the laughter, saying, "Naruto, stay awake in my class for the last time." Naruto simply grinned and said, "Okay. Scar knows." The children started laughing again, which infuriated Iruka even more. "Naruto, it's sensei while you're in this class, got it?" Naruto donned a fox grin and said, "No problem. Snake charmer." The class was perplexed, and Iruka blushed. Naruto. Deepening for a week. It was safe to say that Naruto simply enjoyed his time at school. Flashback to academy beginning. Naruto was anxious on his first day at the academy. Even though Rin and Kakashi assured him that everything would be alright, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was going to miss breakfast. He made his way through the throng of kids in search of his classroom. He was abruptly pushed to the ground as he was checking room numbers in the hallways. Naruto turned to face the boy who had shoved him, a young man about his age with black eyes, a fan on his shirt, and black hair that resembled a duck's ass. The boy continued to glare at Naruto, saying, "Get out of my way, you worthless commoner." Naruto slapped the boy in the face, saying, "Who? You? Calling? Worthless, Teme." The boy simply took his seat in the classroom after giving Naruto a disinterested glance. Naruto brushed himself off the floor and vowed to bring hell down on whoever had knocked him down. He looked around the room and saw that some of the children were different from the others. One boy was large and only ate chips, while the boy next to him was just sleeping. Another boy had a dog in class. And a third boy appeared to be speaking to a bug. Upon concluding his observation of the class, Naruto recognized something in the air and turned to see Hinata-chan. Hearing her name, Hinata turned to face Naruto and waved, "Gee. Good morning, Naruto-kun. Well, it looks like my new students have arrived." Naruto and Hinata turned to face a man dressed in a typical Chunin outfit who was staring down at them. The two children didn't recognize the man from any of the other Chunin they had met, so they assumed he was new. The man simply smiled and said, "Hello, my name is Iruka, and I will be one of your sensei. I hope we can get along." Hinata bowed courteously to Iruka, saying, "Nice to meet you, Iruka Sensei." Naruto, on the other hand, simply grinned and said, "Nice to meet you, Scar Nose." Many of the kids started laughing at this, but Iruka just ignored it because it was the first day and, hopefully, it would end there. Shortly after Naruto and Hinata took their seats, 2 more students entered, and Naruto grinned. Cherry Blossom, Blue Eyes. When they heard their names, Ino and Sakura turned to face Naruto and approached him. Soon, the 4 friends were seated close to one another, and Sakura opened her book bag. "Hey Naruto-kun, this wouldn't happen to be yours, would it?" Sakura said, reaching into her bag and removing a black fox. When Naruto saw this, he grinned broadly and said, "Celine-chan." Ino rolled her eyes at his response, saying, "I assumed she was yours, Naruto-kun." Naruto looked at Ino in confusion and asked, "How did you know?" Sakura responded, "Naruto-kun, it was very clear that the fox belonged to you." Naruto continued to stare at the 2 in confusion, and Celine responded, "How many other foxes do you know that can communicate with Naruto?" When Naruto heard this, he assumed a contemplative stance, and Iruka and the other students were all in disbelief and asking themselves, did that fox just talk? However, that was totally accurate because Hinata had a slightly different thought. A talking fox. Cool and so kawaii. Iruka started his lesson with the village's history after the class had recovered from the shock. After about 3 minutes, Naruto and a boy named Shikamaru were both asleep. Iruka quickly realized that the boys were asleep and went to wake them up by giving them all a fist to the head. He began by telling Shikamaru to wake up, and then punched him in the head. He then turned to face Naruto, who was still unconscious despite the yell, and Iruka punched him as well. Iruka quickly clenched his fist and yelled, "Wake up," but this time it was different because Iruka was holding his hand in pain and there was blood clearly oozing from it while Naruto was still asleep as if nothing had happened. The other kids asked, "Who is this kid? And what's his head made of?" Shortly after the bell rang and many of the kids cheered, Naruto was awakened by the sight of Iruka standing over him with a bloody hand. "What happened to your hand, Sensei?" he asked in confusion as the class went into a frenzy, and Iruka simply sighed, "Nothing, Naruto, but can you try and not sleep in class, okay?" Naruto simply nodded, but before Iruka could say anything, Naruto applied Shozen Jutsu to his hand, instantly healing it. When he returned to the real world, he looked at the class and said, "Everyone recess." With the exception of Hinata, who knew Naruto had great power, everyone just stared in disbelief, including Iruka, who couldn't believe a child could use an advanced medical jutsu. Outside when Naruto, Hinata, and Celine were discovered under a tree enjoying the quiet time they had been given, they failed to notice 2 chakra signatures nearby. "They look so cute together, don't they, Sakura?" And "They sure do, Ino." Naruto and Hinata looked to see their friends grinning at them, and they both said, "Hi guys." Many of the children were playing around and doing whatever they could to kill time. "So what are you 2 doing all alone, him?" Ino smirked as he and Sakura stood there grinning at their friends. When Hinata and Naruto heard this, they both blushed and said, "Nothing, Ino, why do you have to be so troublesome?" All the children turned to see the boy named Shikamaru and the older boy from earlier. Ino simply glared at the boy and told him to shut up. "Shut up, Shikamaru," before turning to face the other boy and grinning and saying, "Hey Choji." The boy, who was slightly flushed, grinned at the blonde girl and said, "Hey Ino." The group's voice, Ino, then started the introduction, saying, "Okay Naruto, Hinata. These 2 over there are Nara Shikamaru and Akamichi Choji." The 2 simply bowed and greeted Naruto and Hinata, who did the same. Well, Hinata did, and Naruto simply grinned, saying, "Nice to meet you, lazy and big bones." Shikamaru simply glared at Naruto, while Choji was crying inside and thanked Kami that someone didn't think he was fat. The children spent most of their time chatting and getting to know one another until Naruto left the group when he saw that the boy who had been talking to Bugs earlier was staring at them. Ino saw Shikamaru's glare and simply rolled her eyes, saying, "Don't get so upset, Shikamaru, he's always giving people names." Shikamaru would only say something annoying and turn to look at the clouds. Abame Shino was the youngest and supposedly most talented member of the Abame clan, but that didn't change the fact that many people found him creepy and that he was frequently shunned by the group. Shino was looking at one of his newly hatched insects when he nearly missed Naruto. With a face devoid of emotion, Naruto walked up to Shino and simply stared at him, After what seemed like hours, Shino asked only one question. Can I help you? At the sound of Shino's perspiration, Naruto simply smiled and said, Konnichiwa, politely. Why? You? Alone? No, fun, alone. So, why? You? Alone? Naruto then gave Shino a perplexed expression. As if reading his mind, Shino explained that in addition, at birth my clan implant insects into a new born and the insects stay in your body until you die. After a while, Shino finally figured out what Naruto was saying and was able to respond. I'm alone because the other children consider me weird because my clan uses insects for jutsu. Shino was beginning to understand what Naruto was saying, but what really piqued his interest was that someone was using insects for jutsu. Unexpectedly, Naruto's mouth hung open as he said, that's so cool. Shino blinked, and Naruto stood directly in front of him, asking, could you teach that to me? That would be so cool. When Shino learned that someone outside of his clan wanted to have insects implanted, he was both extremely perplexed and a little delighted. Shino calmly and courteously told him no, which caused Naruto to pout. He quickly dismissed it with a smile and said, do you want to join my friends? Shino was taken aback by the invitation to become a friend for the second time today, and that was all he could think about when Naruto took his hand and started dragging him in the direction of the other while yelling, hurry up, bug boy. At first, the atmosphere was tense after Naruto brought Shino into the group. Sakura and Ino retreated as far away from him as possible because they were afraid of his bugs, but they eventually grew accustomed to him. Shikamaru simply said, troublesome, and returned to cloud watching. Choji and Hinata greeted him in a much more upbeat and cordial manner than the others, and Choji even gave him one of his chips. As the children were chatting, Celine decided to stretch her legs and take a look around. She saw a lot of human kids running around, yelling, and playing, which confused her, but she thought it was normal for humans. Celine took her time exploring the academy grounds when she saw a ball roll right in front of her. At first, she was very curious about the object and pressed her paw into it, making it squeak. Celine then jumped away from the ball and assumed a defensive stance, ready for anything, but when nothing happened, she got close again and pressed in it again, making it squeaking again. Now that Celine was a fox, and she started beating the ball back and forth, thinking, this is kind of fun, as she pounced on it. Celine was enjoying herself so much that she didn't realize she was being watched. After she had jumped on the ball once more, she heard someone barking at her, hey, what are you doing? Give me back my ball, fur ball. Celine was startled and turned to see a white puppy growling at her. The dog simply scoffed at the ball and said, it's covered in your drool and your horrid scent. I have half the mind not to take it. But I will anyway. Celine was annoyed by what he had called her, but she tried to be courteous by saying, Gomenasai, I didn't know it was yours here, as she passed it to the dog. Another voice called out, Akamaru, and Celine turned to see a boy with brown hair, dog-like features, and a terrible stench emanating from him. Oh fuck, Celine thought, and the boy looked at her before saying, hey, aren't you that talking fox that came with that freak with the blonde hair? Celine just stared off into space and started to whistle in an attempt to blend in, but the dog boy just looked at her bewildered and said, I don't think foxes normally whistle. Celine smacked her head with her paw just now, remembering that. Before anything more odd could happen, Hinata's quiet voice approached Celine and said, Celine. Shan-T. There you are, NN Naruto.kun has been looking for you. Celine put on a fox grin and said, yeah right, he was probably too busy eyeing you to notice I was gone. Hinata turned red at the sound of this, and Celine smiled again and said, I knew it, he forget all about me and spent all his time on you. Hinata gave a nervous laugh, while Celine simply sighed. During their conversation, the boy with the dog kept his eyes fixed on Hinata, saying, she's beautiful. The boy approached Hinata nervously and said, hi, my name is Inuzuka Kiba. Hinata turned to Kiba and smiled kindly, saying, hello, I Inuzuka.san. My name is Hyuga Hinata, it's nice to meet you. Celine noticed what was happening and, for some reason, didn't like this. Kiba, staring at Hinata as he did. Hinata turned to Kiba and said, good.bye Kiba.san, before she left, but Kiba just stood there thinking, she is so beautiful and she will be mine, with a dark look of desire in his eyes for the young Hyuga. Ino shouted loudly that it was time to return to class before Kiba could say anything more to her. Returning to class, Many of the children who weren't from a shinobi family stayed out of this, but a few kids, including Naruto and some convincing Hinata, stepped up even though they didn't want to be the center of attention. Iruka started to get everyone's attention once they were all back in class. Okay, class, since we are nearing the end of the day, I would like to ask some of you to come up and show the class your skills. ACEDMEY training ground outside. Standing in front of the crowd were the students who had consented to demonstrate their knowledge. Ino, Choji, Shikamaru, Shino, Kiba, Hinata, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and a boy named Sai. Iruka stood in front of the children and grinned, saying, "Okay, each of you do any kind of technique you can do. Sakura, you go first." Sakura nodded and approached the group slowly, nervous, until Ino yelled, "Hey, aren't you going to do something, forehead?" Sakura gave Ino a death glare and threw a ray of pink light at him, who barely digged it, before a loud explosion was heard. After the dust had cleared, everyone looked to see the damage and discovered a large crater. Iruka laughed nervously. "Good work, Sakura, you done." Sakura, flushed bright red, nodded, and walked back to the group. The next student was Ino, who used her family's mind, altering techniques to control Iruka, which made everyone laugh. Shikamaru then used his Kagemain no Jutsu to control Iruka's shadow before claiming it was troublesome. Choji then used his family jutsu to enlarge his fingers a bit because he was too young for anything else. After that, Shino just stood there doing nothing at first until he suddenly transformed into thousands of bugs using the bug clone technique, which startled most of the female students, with the exception of one girl who blushed at him. Finally, Kiba, who, like the other, used his family jutsu with his dog. 4 students remained after everything was finished: Naruto, Hinata, Sasuke, and Sai. "This is a waste of my time," Iruka said as Sasuke stepped forward and performed the high signs for Kaden Gukaku no Jutsu, while launching a massive fireball. Iruka was trying to decide whether to follow someone from a clan like Hinata and Sasuke or to go with the unknown like Naruto and Sai. Upon witnessing this, a large number of Sasuke's fangirls started yelling for their Sasuke-kun, while other girls, such as Sakura and Ino, simply rolled their eyes. Naruto disliked Sasuke's arrogant demeanor and his tendency to flaunt himself. Iruka simply rubbed his temples when he saw Sasuke's display because he thought the young Uchiha would show off his superiority once more. After his headache subsided, Iruka turned to Hinata and asked, "Hinata, can you go next?" Hinata nodded and nervously left the field until she turned to face Naruto, who gave her a fox grin and a thumbs up, which was all she needed. "Baikugan," Hinata said. Her veins bulged around her eyes. When they saw this, many people gasped and reacted differently. While some students, like Naruto, found it cool, the majority of the students found it creepy. One person was furious that the weak Hyuga had the power he deserved, while others, like the Iruka, were astounded that someone so young could use her bloodline. When Hinata realized she had made an impression, she assumed the Kaden stance and spun for roughly 3 seconds like a top surrounded by chakra. At the sight of the renowned Hakesho Kaden, a technique that was passed down from the Hyuga main house, Iruka's eyes almost popped out of his skull. Iruka thought, she can use the technique but not long for combat uses, but still so have mastered so young is amazing. Iruka approached Hinata, who was panting heavily, and grinned. While he was thinking, however, Naruto ran straight up to her and said, "Hinata-chan. That. So. Cool." He then picked her up and began spinning her around, which made Hinata feel lightheaded even though she was enjoying it. "Arigato Naruto-kun," was Hinata's smile after Naruto had set her down, and she blushed slightly. Iruka quickly snapped out of his reverie and turned to face Sai. "Sai, could you go next?" Iruka asked the boy, who followed instructions by pulling out a scroll and staring at the drawing. "Ninpo. Shouju Giga," was followed by a small bird flying off the paper in Sai's picture. Iruka had never seen a jutsu based on ink before, so she was impressed. Turning to face Sai, Iruka said, "Very good, Sai, very impressive." Then Iruka turned to Naruto and said, "Okay, Naruto, you're next." Hinata wished Naruto luck as he entered the field. Because of this, a lot of students continued to watch Naruto and heard numerous rumors that he had evil abilities and could fly, among other things, but none of them could be verified until they were discovered. "Sensei. Could you help me? I need." "Opponent," was Naruto's statement as he stood in the center of the field, and although Iruka was taken aback, she accepted it because she believed nothing negative would occur. On either side of the field's ends, Iruka and Naruto stood. Iruka carried a kunai in case something happened, while Naruto was merely grinning. "Anytime you're ready, Naruto," Iruka said, glancing at him. Naruto nodded, started to gather his dark chakra, and his eyes turned blood red. With the exception of his friends who had already witnessed his dark power, the majority of the students were terrified when they saw Naruto. Iruka was also terrified because he didn't really expect what he saw when he looked at the boy with the blonde hair, and he assumed that all of the stories Enko had told him about him were accurate at this point. Naruto started to collect chakra in his right arm while Iruka was deep in thought. His arm's skin turned black, and his fingers merged into one, taking on the appearance of a snake's face. Iruka barely survived the attack when Naruto yelled, "Hydra arm," and hurled the snake at her before she could respond. He barely had time to catch his breath, though, as the snake returned with its fangs bared, and Iruka drew a kunai and severed the snake's head before it could bite. Iruka let out a sigh of relief as the head dropped to the ground, motionless. Iruka examined the head he had just severed. It belonged to a snake with yellow eyes and numerous sharp teeth. Consider the game the Dakrness. The snake's body was on the ground, still attached to Naruto's arm, who was, for some reason, grinning. At that moment, Iruka saw the snake's body begin to move before two heads suddenly exploded from it. Iruka was shocked by what he saw and then remembered the name, Hydra arm, which now made sense because chopping off the head would probably cause more to grow. Iruka barely dared to follow the two heads before they could stop him from thinking. They quickly resumed their attack, though, and Iruka had to cut off one of the heads before it grew back in two, leaving him to deal with three snakes now. Iruka saw something and did his best to come up with something. He chose to test something and threw a kunai at Naruto, who was still standing where he was holding his arm to control the snakes. When Naruto saw the kunai being thrown at him, he dogged it, and the Hydra arm vanished instantly. That type of move is useful for assassin attacks and could take out a group of enemies if planed out. Iruka grinned when he saw this. However, it appears that Naruto must remain still and focus or it will vanish. Iruka smiled at the potential Naruto possessed. After his first attack failed, Naruto was furious and had to come up with a new plan. He smiled and recalled a story he had read about a clan that used bones as weapons. He extended his hand to Iruka and prepared his next move. For some reason, Iruka saw Naruto extend his hand, and then he saw something approaching from his palm. Not wanting to take any chances, Iruka performed Kawarimi no Jutsu, and replaced himself with a log. After he had escaped, Iruka looked at the attack that Naruto had used, and he saw that a long blade had emerged from his hand and pierced the log. Naruto simply grinned and uttered the words, "Blades of blood." Iruka had to be careful when she told Naruto about his unusual diet because as he pulled the blade out, a piece of it broke off at the tip and fell to the ground, liquefying and turning red like blood. As Naruto was thinking, Iruka emerged from his hiding place and asked the boy, "Naruto, do you think you can continue?" Naruto simply nodded. Naruto was breathing heavily due to the enormous amount of chakra he had used, not to mention the blood his last move had used. He could feel the thirst rising in him, knowing he couldn't do much more. Iruka sighed, "Okay, but don't attack, just show what you can do." Naruto smiled, agreed, and told Iruka to come forward. Iruka did, and Naruto showed his hands to her. At first, Iruka didn't realize what was happening until a third arm grew out of his back and an eyeball appeared in both of his hands. Iruka, like many of the other students, went wide-eyed. Iruka became uneasy upon hearing Naruto suddenly collapse backwards on the ground and start breathing heavily while uttering the word "thirsty" in a raspy voice. Before he could react, he noticed Hinata behind him and asked, "Hinata, what is it?" Hinata looked nervous and said, "I-K. No W. W. What to D.Do sensei?" Iruka saw no point in arguing and allowed Hinata to do whatever she needed to do. Naruto was gasping as his body literally shut down, but he heard someone call his name and turned to see Hinata smiling at him. "Hinata-chan." "Thirsty," Naruto said, and Hinata simply nodded, "I know." Hinata sat Naruto up and placed his head close to her neck, saying, "Gee. Go ahead Naruto.kun." Similar to the previous time, Naruto hesitated, but the pain of the thirst was too great, so he bit down and began drinking her blood. Hinata didn't even flinch or react when Naruto bit her. Instead, she just sat there, letting Naruto drink from her, joyful that she could help the person she cared about. With the exception of Ino, who merely said, "Kinky," and received odd looks from almost everyone, there were two individuals who were either envious of Naruto's power or that Hinata was observing him. During this time, Many of the students were either afraid of Naruto's power or afraid of Naruto himself because he was drinking blood in front of them. His friends, on the other hand, were astounded by what Naruto and Hinata could accomplish and perhaps a little uneasy at witnessing him actually drinking blood. When he had enough blood, Naruto licked the wound on Hinata's neck like a dog, which made her blush a little. After finishing, they both went to the rest of the class, but as soon as they were with the other students, Ino asked, "So you two looked like you were having fun?" Both Hinata and Naruto blushed at this. Shoji approached Naruto and asked, "Naruto, those jutsu were so cool, what else can you do?" He smirked and said, "Ultimate Horror Genjutsu," and as he did so, a huge stack of books appeared, all of which said Icha Icha Paradise. Iruka wondered how Naruto knew about those books, which he frequently found Enko reading, and why he called it Ultimate Horror. As soon as he finished thinking this, all of the books burst into flames and started to burn rapidly, which made Iruka think, that explains it, while many of the students didn't understand. Iruka then noted that class was almost over and said, "Okay, everyone, go back to class and then you can go home." As the students were making their way back, all he could think about was, Naruto, what an interesting kid, but another student quickly pulled him out of his reverie. Iruka asked the boy, "What is it?" and noticed that he was pointing at something, and his jaw almost hit the floor when he saw that Naruto had two wings protruding from his back and was flying to the classroom window, saying, "He can fly." Naruto's first day at the academy was that day. Unknown address sitting on a throne composed of stone and skulls, a figure with eyes as lifeless and icy as a corpse grinned ominously. I can feel his power growing even now. As 7 figures emerged, one of them, a tall man, stepped forward and asked, "Master, is it time to move forward?" "It will soon be time to take what is mine," the figure said in a sickly voice. The figure turned to face the man and said, "No pride, it is not time yet, but very soon it will be. As of now all you keep watching him." The figures nodded and started to leave when the master called their attention once more, saying, "Greed, lust, gluttony, envy, sloth, wrath. Keep in mind that I mean it by saying only watch or I will devour, you understand?" All of them turned to face their master and greeted him with, "Hi Master." The last time we saw Naruto and his friends was many years ago. All of them had been learning as much as they could about being shinobi. Keeping in mind what they had learned in the academy, they had examined their family's skills. As he trained as much as he could with Kakashi learning ninjutsu, Naruto was also trying his hardest to become a shinobi. Since he was the only person in the village with the ability to regenerate limbs, he would learn everything he could about medical jutsu while training with Rin. When Naruto wasn't training, he would either play with his favorite murderous aunt Anko or practice Tai jutsu with Hinata. The two numerous games had been when Naruto first discovered he could change his dark chakra into anything or anybody. His first example was himself, who had the capacity to grow several limbs and completely transform his body into something else, such as wings. After seeing the effects on Selene, Naruto started experimenting with other things because he was curious about what else he could do. He started to wonder what would happen if he tried it on plants. The Forest of Death in the middle. Since it was the weekend, Naruto was having a good day and finally had time to practice controlling his dark chakra. Naruto had been wondering for the past few months what would happen to objects when he used his dark chakra. He had made numerous successful attempts to apply the dark chakra to himself, but he had never considered applying it to the surroundings until his curiosity overcame him. With the belief that nothing could go wrong, Naruto started to channel as much chakra as he could while standing in the center of the forest in front of one of the largest trees he could find. One mistake Naruto made, though, was not telling anyone he was going to try. Naruto then started to increase his chakra to what he thought would be sufficient to have some sort of impact on the tree. He started slowly pumping the dark energy from the tree into the plant. Naruto paused to inspect his work after he thought he had inserted enough chakra into the tree. He was disappointed to see that the tree had not changed, though. "Fuck, I thought that would work, but I guess I'll think of something else," Naruto said. Naruto was lost in his thoughts and didn't notice anyone behind him until a black fox emerged from the bushes. The fox glared at Naruto, saying, "There you are, Naruto. Do you have any idea how pissed Rin.San is or the trouble it's been trying to find you?" Naruto simply stood motionless in thought, as if he hadn't heard a word Selene had said, which infuriated the fox, who then yelled, "Don't ignore me, damn it." Naruto heard this and said, "Damn you, Kakashi.San, damn you. Naruto, what are you doing here in the Forest of Death? You know that you're not supposed to be here without Anko-san's permission." Selene glared at her master after she had calmed down. This was always the case with Naruto. He didn't want to be treated like a child because he was approaching the genin exams and would be regarded as an adult once he became a shinobi, but he still had the attitude of one. Naruto simply rolled his eyes in frustration and said, "Ik. Know that Celine. Chan, I'm N. N. Not child D. D. Damn it." Celine simply sighed. "Well, Naruto, you wouldn't be treated like a child if you would stop acting like one all the time," Celine said with a fox-like smirk. Naruto simply crossed his arms over his chest and pouted, saying, That's N. N. Not true. ID.don. Not act like a circa C. Child, in a childish manner. Naruto, you're a Euro, you're not trying to manipulate your charka into other objects again, are you? Celine asked nervously, rolling her eyes because she wasn't in the mood for Naruto's nonsense. Naruto didn't respond, instead avoiding Celine's glare and staring off into space. "You are, Naruto, what are you thinking? Are you telling me you still haven't learned your lesson at your last failed attempts?" Celine became anxious when she noticed this. Knowing that he would always receive this lecture following his fruitless attempts to comprehend his power, Naruto simply rubbed his temples. "Let's see, there was the time you turned the 4 heads of the Hokage monument into deadly golems, and the time you turned the Fire Lady's cat into a Ginid two-headed monster with bat wings," Celine said, clearing her throat as she sat on the ground. Naruto simply complained, "What else him? How about the time you somehow turned the hot springs into a portal into the demon world?" Celine paused to think of something else. "Then there was time you turned a simple prime mantis into a Ginid flesh-eating prime mantis, or did you forget the chunk it took out of you?" Naruto simply glared at his partner, asking, W. What was wrong W? With that why? Why? You got to M. Meet the Kyuubi no Kitsune after all. Then there was that time you used your shadow and turned it into a black hole and made the Dango restaurant fall into it. Celine continued, not committing. Naruto shuddered at the memory, recalling how Anko almost killed her for his brutal treatment of her favorite restaurant. Then, after taking a moment to catch her breath, Celine went on to her favorite memory of Naruto's attempts. "But let's not forget the time you turned Hinata-chan's breast into Tsunade-sama size." Naruto became angry at this, saying, "That a Euro, that was an accident." Celine simply grinned, saying, "Oh really, it seemed to me you enjoyed it to me." Blood started to flow from Naruto's nose as he became even more enraged, and he turned redder. The two started to leave the forest and return to the village after laughing heartily at Naruto's humiliation. The two heard what sounded like someone bending tree branches as they were making their way back to the village. They turned to see that the tree Naruto was working on had grown larger, its leaves had turned black, and its branches were spreading out like tentacles. When Celine and Naruto saw this, they both started to feel anxious about what was going on. This time, Celine glared at Naruto, saying, "Look what you've done. You turn a tree into a squid." Naruto simply gave her a look and replied, "With teeth." When Celine heard this, she turned to face the tree and saw that a big hole had formed in the middle of it, with what appeared to be large, sharp teeth protruding from it. Celine felt something beneath her paws and said, "Look out." Naruto heard this and leapt into the air, barely avoiding the tree root that was now the size of a club with spikes protruding from it. From a nearby tree branch, Naruto observed his creation and swore that it had failed once more. Naruto was aware that this would land him in hot water, but he had to tend to the monster plant he had made first. After that, he had to confront his mother, which made it alluring for the monster plant to devour him. After smoking, Naruto reached into his ninja equipment and withdrew a kunai that had an explosive tag attached. Before he could throw it, he paused and came up with an idea. As he started inserting his dark charka into the explosive tag, Naruto glanced at it and grinned at his fresh concept. Naruto threw the tag at the beast after it started to glow darkly. The next thing Naruto knew, after the kunai struck the tree, he was flying through the air, blind and deaf, having already experienced at least 3 before he hit the ground. Beyond the forest of death, since it was one of those days when nothing could possibly go wrong, many of the villagers were going about their daily lives without a care in the world. Until a massive gust of wind blew through, knocking several people to the ground and sending carts full of food and other items flying. As if that weren't enough, there was an ear-piercing explosion that caused so much pain that many people passed out. When the ones who recovered turned to face the direction of the noise, they noticed a huge mushroom cloud in the distance, which made everyone think, Naruto again. Naruto is back. We find the blonde hero beneath a heap of downed trees, frantically attempting and failing to claw his way out of the debris. Fortunately, he was on his back and could at least look up, so he gave up trying for a few minutes and just lay there. When Naruto opened his eyes a few minutes later, he saw Selene, his devoted friend and companion, standing above him, her eyes dark and her teeth bared. Selene chose to use Naruto's face as a chew toy before Naruto could even open his mouth to ask for her assistance. After a while, Selene released her grip on her master's face and sat before him, admiring the marks she had made with her teeth. On the other hand, Naruto simply tried to get to her while glaring at the small fox with all the murderous intent he could muster. His inability to reach him prompted Naruto to ask, Why did you bite me? B. Baka.fox. Selene simply stared at him and yelled, What the hell are you fucking saying? I can't hear anything because some fucking baka had to create their own fucking bomb. Naruto broke out in a cold sweat. Naruto healed Selene's ears, and after about an hour, he stopped attempting to free himself with her assistance. A small amount of the lumber was moved by the two, but not enough, so they gave up and waited for assistance. Naruto chose to simply lay on the ground and stare up at the sky while holding something he had taken from Shikamaru until someone discovered them. As usual, Selene simply curled into a ball and slept on Naruto's chest. Naruto had always loved the blue sky above him, which reminded him of many people and places he had visited before coming to Konoha. He never took his eyes off the sky. Naruto realized that he had never been able to recall much of his life prior to Konoha. He mainly recalled simply moving from place to place on foot or using his wings to fly. Additionally, he recalled the individuals he had encountered, such as the odd swordsman without eyebrows and his even stranger companion, who Naruto was never able to identify as either a boy or a girl. Then there was his brief visit to Suna, where he met a green-eyed, red-haired boy he couldn't recall by name, but they had a good time and became friends. In addition to the other boy who enjoys playing with makeup or the boy's sister who had a thing for fans and pigtails. Additionally, there were the odd places he had visited, such as his first visit to the demon world, where he actually made some friends with both lower class and higher class demons. Given how close he became to the demon fox's mate and kits, he had even met almost all of the Biju and was somewhat of Kyuubi's family friend. Yes, Naruto had witnessed a lot of things in his youth. He never knew what it was, but he always felt as though he was lacking something. Sometimes he considered going out to look for something, but he knew he couldn't. Since he had friends, family, and all the blood he could possibly need in Konoha, he had come to love his life there and saw no reason to leave. Naruto simply sighed after that and started to consider what lay ahead for him. He was eager to pass the genin exams so he could join a team with one of his friends and become a shinobi like his parents. He envisioned himself as the world's greatest shinobi, fending off entire armies, saving a stunning princess with white eyes and blue hair, and becoming a hero. Naruto dismissed the idea, finding it odd that every time he had that dream, all the women he saved appeared to be Hinata for some reason, and he occasionally pondered why. Selene felt Naruto's heartbeat quicken while he was thinking, so he decided to play along. You're thinking about Hinata again, aren't you? Selene asked, looking at his pet, W. What are Y.U.T. talking about? Selene grinned evilly, saying, You can't lie to me. I know you're thinking about her every time you do. Your heart rate goes up, your stuttering gets worse, and you talk in your sleep. Naruto blushed as Selene's grin changed from evil to demonic, saying, If only Rin.san and Hinata heard what you talk about in your sleep, you perv. The sound of someone landing on the ground close to them both interrupted Naruto as he was about to refute what Selene had said. When the two looked to see who it was, the same thought crossed their minds. Not good. Rin was in front of them, and she was furious. Hi, it is a nice day Naruto, but I have to sincerely doubt that's why you're in the forest today, is it Naruto.kun? Rin said, cracking her knuckles as she stood there, her face immobile, while Naruto started to perspire when he saw his mother. Naruto could already feel the pain being inflicted upon him, and he started to tremble in terror. Bring home since Kakashi was never one to get up early unless it was absolutely necessary or he had a fresh excuse to try something new, he was getting out of bed. Knowing that Rin would have breakfast ready and that the day would hopefully start off normally, the silver-headed man started to enter the dining room, but his luck was never like that. As he entered the area where his family was, he noticed his wife Rin smiling and sipping a cup of green tea. Ohayou gozaimasu Kakashi.kun. Kakashi simply grinned at her and gave her one of his eyes smiles before turning to face his adopted son Naruto, who had a swollen, bruised face, one black eye, and his jaw clenched in agony. You tried one of your little experiments again, didn't you, Naruto? Kakashi sighed upon seeing this, and Naruto simply nodded his head. How many teeth did Rin knock out this time? Kakashi asked, 4 of Naruto's teeth and 1 of his fangs were gone when he opened his mouth, indicating that Rin had not been kind to him. Trying new jutsu again, Naruto? Kakashi asked his son as he sat at the table and picked up a rice ball. Naruto nodded his head up and down and looked at his father, who was eating the rice ball while wearing his mask. In the academy, many kids who aspired to be shinobi were busy studying for the genin exams today, either by practicing the necessary jutsu or by studying last-minute questions. Some students, like Hinata, were just waiting for others to arrive while chatting with friends. Since it was quiet and before the more boisterous classmates arrived, Hinata had come to the academy early to get a head start on her exam preparation. She had practiced and committed everything she needed to memory. She was still bothered by something, though. "Where are you, Naruto-kun?" Class was about to begin when the clock struck 7:56, and Iruka and his colleague Mizuki had already entered the room. Using his large head jutsu, Iruka stood at the front of the class and told everyone to sit down and stop talking before starting his brief speech. Iruka cleared his throat and said, "Now class, as you know, today is your loss." He was cut off when someone said, "Wait, Iruka. Sensei Naruto-kun hasn't arrived yet." Iruka turned to see who had ruined his carefully planned speech, but he was right at Euro. No one was interested in it. Unexpectedly, or not, depending on who you were, Iruka had turned to face Hyuga Hinata, the source of the voice. Iruka sighed. He should have realized that Naruto would either arrive late or make a dramatic entrance, which he had regrettably chosen from both Kakashi and Anko. Iruka glanced at the clock and saw that Naruto still had a few minutes to make it to class, as it was still 2 till 8. "I guess Naruto still has time, but if he's not here soon, I'll have no choice but to," he said, casting a comforting glance at Hinata. Iruka didn't have time to finish his sentence before a big drop of blood landed on the floor. Many of the students, not believing what they were seeing, looked up at the roof and noticed that blood droplets were pouring out of it instead of water as one might anticipate. Many of the pupils started to shake in terror and turn white at what they were witnessing. At what might have been a scene from a horror film, some of the students were holding their hands over their mouths to keep their breakfast in their stomachs. Other students started to request more blood to spill and put on a better show because they were enjoying the gore fest in front of them. One student, on the other hand, simply smiled as she watched everything through her white eyes and seemed relieved that it was happening. Returning to the blood fest, bigger pools of blood started to form throughout the classroom as more drops of blood started to fall from the ceiling in various locations, some of which poured like water from a faucet. Many of the students looked around at the large pools of blood and started to wonder what was going on after the blood poured from the ceiling stopped. Before anyone could question what was going on, the big puddles of blood started to move and blend together as though they were living things. The pools of blood soon started to combine into a single, large puddle, but the ruby liquid continued to flow freely and even started to bubble. Many of the students started to pass out from fear of what they were seeing, believing that things couldn't get any worse. But when a bloody human hand emerged from the pool, it did. The sight of it caused many of the students to gasp in horror. The bloody hand pressed against the floor, and shortly after, another arm emerged from the pool and also pressed against the floor. Long after that, a body and what appeared to be a human skull started to emerge. The creature eventually stood over the bloody pool and gazed at the class through hollow eye sockets, moaning in pain. Blood poured down the creature's skinless body as it stood there moaning in pain. This was the last straw, and the class erupted in loud screams of panic as they all fled to the back of the room to avoid the creature as much as possible. All but one student, Hyuga Hinata, sighed and approached the creature as though it were nothing out of the ordinary, rather than cowering in terror. As she was walking, she noticed that only 7 students were even making an effort to remain composed, while many others were screaming in terror. She also glanced at the teachers and saw Mizuki gasping for air in terror, while Iruka stood with his hand on a kunai. It was heartbreaking. Now, with her arms folded across her chest, Hinata faced the creature and said, "Naruto-kun, you've had your fun, now stop it." The creature stopped moaning and the blood at its feet started to blend with it, forming skin, hair, and clothing. The figure soon assumed the form of their friend Naruto, who drank blood and had blonde hair. Many of the still conscious children turned to see what was going on, and sure enough, Naruto was standing there, blonde, blue-eyed, and fanged, all in black shinobi gear. While some of the children silently mocked Naruto for his park or believed he was worthless, many of them glared at him in disgust at his trick. Naruto simply stood there grinning evilly and making the V for victory sign while all of this was going on. In contrast, Hinata simply sighed at Naruto's antics but let out a little laugh, indicating that she found her blonde friend's prank amusing. "Naruto-kun, enough with the parks. Hinata said sternly as she glared at Naruto after noticing that Naruto's shadow had begun acting independently. After noticing the tone of her voice, Naruto started to back off and inquired, W. What or why? Why.ut? T. Talking about Hinata. Chan. He was genuinely unsure of what she was discussing. Hinata pointed to Naruto's shadow, which reflected exactly what she was saying, her icy glare still visible. Naruto leaned in to take a closer look at the shadow after noticing it and concluding that he had nothing to do with it. As he approached the shadow, a completely black, featureless shape appeared, then began to shrink into the body of a black fox, Celine. Both Naruto and Hinata blinked in surprise at what they had just witnessed. Celine had just come out of the shadow domain, something that only Naruto was capable of doing. Naruto referred to this place as the shadow domain, which was composed entirely of the shadows of everything. It was useful for sneaking into places because Naruto discovered that he could enter through his shadow or any shadow and move around to any area where light was streaming in, even if it was only through another shadow. When Naruto examined his pet fox, he noticed that her eyes were whirling in a clockwise direction, indicating that she was experiencing vertigo. Recalling his first foray into the shadow domain, he picked her up and made sure she was alright. SS Celine. Chan A. Are you okay? K. He asked worriedly, checking to make sure there was nothing physically wrong with her aside from a slight flush. Celine, still feeling nauseous, said to her human companion, Naruto put down quick. Naruto was about to inquire as to why, but it was too late because Celine had already opened her mouth and spilled her breakfast all over Naruto. Naruto thought, that's why, after she had done that, while Hinata laughed, recalling the first time she had tried that and the same outcome. Hinata had taken Celine and was massaging the back of her ears to help her feel a little better while she was cleaning away the vomit. As she did this, Hinata turned to see Shino, who appeared as he always did, and greeted him, Naruto.san, Hinata. Sana Euro Celine.san. The three of them gazed at the silent human colony, grinning. Ohio Shino.san, Hinata said in a courteous tone, while Celine simply waved a paw at Shino without making eye contact. However, Naruto chose to be himself, saying, Ohio a Euro Flasher. Many of the children in the back became ill upon hearing this, and others started to question whether Shino was actually wearing anything underneath his coat. On the outside, Shino appeared indifferent to Naruto's remarks, but on the inside, he was already plotting his retaliation. It was too late for Naruto when a shout of, Naruto, and a loud pouching sound filled the room, as the three children and the fox were too preoccupied to notice the murderer's intent behind them. Everyone turned to see Iruka standing over Naruto, wearing a pair of brass knuckles, silently thanking Guy for them as he made an impression on the wooden floor, face first. One individual stood behind Iruka during this time, wearing a worried expression on his face, but his inner thoughts were different. Filthy monster. Once I kill you I will be rewarded for doing God's will. After his brief experience with the floor, Naruto managed to regain his composure and gave Iruka a scowl that said, What did I do? You were almost late, and you just had to pull another one of your fucking pranks, Iruka said, glaring at the blonde vampire. Actually, why were you nearly late in the first place? For approximately a minute, Naruto stood silently with a black expression on his face until he said, I got lost on the road of life. At this point, everyone in the classroom fell to the ground, realizing that Kakashi had taken advantage of every opportunity he had to pass it on to his son. Iruka quickly got up and started massaging his temples before he simply sighed, Naruto, just go to your seat, okay. Naruto simply nodded and followed Hinata and Shino to their seats. Naruto was struck in the back of his head once more after he had reached his seat and sat down, and when he looked to see where the blow had come from, he saw Hinata staring at him in confusion. Hinata. Chan W. What did I do? Question mark just crossing her arms over her chest, Hinata said. That was foolish of you and your little Charka experiments once more. While the two were arguing, Sakura and Ino sat behind them, grinning, Hey Sakura. The pink-haired girl turned to her friend, have you noticed that over the years Hinata has become the outspoken one while Naruto turns into the shy one that stutters? Sakura simply grinned, I know. But love does strange things to people if only they would admit they were more than friends. Ino simply sighed, that will be cold day hell Sakura. Naruto appeared alarmed that she had discovered and was going to let him have it, as she continued to talk down to him. The two girls laugh at their small joke and start talking about what to expect on the upcoming test, but one boy and his puppy didn't care because he was focused on the Hyuga heiress in front of her. He had wanted her since he first met her and had tried everything to get her attention, but he had only ever received just friends, so far, but it didn't bother him because he knew she would be his one day. He then turned to face Naruto, the blonde freak, and he had never liked him because he was a threat and kept getting in the way of him claiming his Hinata. Until that happened, he would sit and bid his time until Inuzuka Kiba struck. Iruka stood at the front of the class, decided it was time to start, and tried to get the attention of the students, but they ignored him as they always did. Seeing that he couldn't get them to listen, Iruka used his big head jutsu, saying, "Okay class a euro, shut the hell up." Iruka then thanked the Akamichi clan in silence for teaching him that jutsu, even though they left him with the bill. Today is the day of the Genin exams, and I am happy to say that I'm very proud of you all. Some of you had great progress over the years, Iruka said as the room fell silent. Iruka smiled at his small joke and went on, "After today, many of you will get the chance to follow your dreams and achieve many goals, but I warn you the road ahead is difficult. I will no longer be your teacher after this test, but I know many of you will at least try and remember me," he said, to the chuckles of many of the students. When Iruka continued, many of the students started to feel anxious. "But don't worry about that, no, try your best and let's see what happens," she said. "As a shinobi, you will see and do many things that will be horrible, but as shinobi for the village, you will be expected to face them as adults." Once Iruka finished his speech, he started to distribute the Genin's written test. The intelligent children could now use their memory from years of study to answer the questions. The more accomplished pupils gave their test to Iruka and were given time to themselves after using their skills to cheat on others without being discovered. Iruka displayed the results on the wall to indicate who performed the best after 30 minutes had passed. The children gathered to see who had the highest scores. Some performed better than they did, while others did not, but the top 10 were the main focus of attention. Ino was searching the chart for her name so she could use her bragging rights. When she saw her name at 6, she grinned. Additionally, she searched for her friend's name and discovered that Sakura was at number 2. Although she was disappointed that she didn't receive a higher score, she was pleased for her friend. After moving some of the other children aside, Ino noticed Sakura somewhere in the back and exclaimed, "Hey Sakura, you made it to second place." Sakura stared at Ino in shock until she showed her the chart. While her inner self was screaming that she was the best, Sakura couldn't help but smile when she saw that she had just defeated Hinata by 3 points and that what Ino had said was true. Ino would have responded, but some beat her to it. "Isn't it obvious? The top score is only reserved for the best and most skilled of students, namely a Uchiha. Therefore, I Uchiha Sasuke am therefore ranked at the top of you losers and wannabes." Many of the kids in the back were getting impatient because it was taking too long for the group to move, so one boy yelled, "Hey, who got top score?" Upon hearing the cocky bastard's little speech, Ino decided to break his ego by saying, "Hey duck.ass, hate to break it to you, but you only scored at 10 just below Azumka Kiba." Many of the students started laughing at the great Uchiha losing to the dead last of the class, and Sasuke was horrified. He went to check for himself and saw that his name was ranked at the bottom of the top 10, while the name that filled him with nothing but disgust was Hitaki Naruto. When he saw this, Sasuke's blood began to boil, and he clenched his fist. Dark thoughts kept whispering into his ear, "How can that loser a Euro, that freak a Euro, that a Euro demon do better me? I'm Uchiha Danm it." As he stood there, Sasuke could hear his brother telling him he was weak and stupid, and his father saying in digest at how much of a failure Sasuke was. The blonde was more interested in drinking the package of blood in front of him than he was in his classmates' test results, while Sasuke was ruminating on how Naruto had deceived him and plotting ways to get even with him. Naruto.kun, aren't you worried about your test score? Don't you want to see how you did? Hinata had to smile as she looked at her friend next to him and noticed that he was totally at ease. Naruto simply grinned at his friend and said, "No pay a Euro thirsty." Hinata had to laugh when he said this because, even though Naruto had grown up a lot, there were still moments when he would suddenly return to the young boy. Reminiscent of her first encounter with Naruto and the time they had spent together, Hinata smiled. Looking back, she saw that Naruto had resumed drinking his blood, so she decided to do him a favor by putting one finger to her mouth and biting down so hard that the skin broke. After finishing his package, Naruto was going to throw it away when he noticed something sweet in the air and noticed that one of Hinata's fingers was bleeding. Hinata was grinning and said, "Here is Naruto a gift for doing a great job on the test." Naruto didn't really hear her because he was too preoccupied with the red dripping from her finger. For some reason, Naruto had always preferred the taste of Hinata blood to anything he got from the blood banks. Without thinking, Naruto took Hinata's bloody fingers and started licking every drop he could reach with his tongue. Despite the fact that everyone in the room was smirking and watching, Hinata simply sat there and reveled. The students were given tests centered around weapons, genjutsu, and taijutsu after everyone had had a chance to check their test results. Finally, it was time for their final test, ninjutsu. Many students took it, some passed, and some failed. Naruto's face was all smiles as he entered the testing room. Room for testing. Both senseis sat there with their jaws open, watching Naruto as he stood in front of them. Iruka cleared his throat and said, "Naruto, I want you to do a Bunshin no Jutsu." Iruka turned to face Naruto and saw him sitting there, and as he was about to tell him again, the Naruto in front of him began to turn red and turn into a pool of blood. "Very good, Naruto. Now, can you use the other techniques?" Iruka sat there grinning as Naruto emerged from behind the two and said, "B. Blood Bunshin." Iruka hid a chuckle when he saw that Naruto had nodded and used the Kawarimi no Jutsu to replace himself with the pool of blood that had fallen on top of Mizuki out of rage. Naruto then performed a henge, changing into the Yondaime Hokage, but it had little effect. Iruka grinned at the boy and said, "Well done, Naruto. You passed and with top scores, you're the Rookie of the Year. Congratulations." Naruto looked at his sensei, perplexed, and said, "Naruto, why don't you take this one instead?" Iruka removed his own headband and gave it to Naruto, who stared down at the gift in front of him, genuinely touched by Iruka's generosity as he tied it around his sensei, Arigatio Sensei. Iruka placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and said, "Make me proud, Naruto. I hope to see you and Hinata at the festival." A silver-haired Chunin was glaring at Naruto as the two were enjoying their moment, saying, "You wait, filthy monster. Soon, with God's help, I will destroy you in the name of purity." Outside of the academy after the test, many children were outside showing their parents their headbands, receiving praise for their accomplishments. Some parents, like Naruto, had not shown up, which he actually kind of appreciated because he needed to do something and didn't want his father to make fun of him. Naruto searched the group of children and adults for Hinata, the one person who mattered to him. Standing in the crowd, wearing a Konoha headband around her neck, Hinata was extremely proud of what she had accomplished and looked around the area for any sign of her family to prove it. Although she couldn't find them, she did find Naruto, who was running to her. She was soon caught up by Naruto, who was breathing heavily and had his hands on his knees. "Hey, Hinata-chan." Hinata simply grinned at her friend, saying, "I see you passed the exams, Naruto-kun." Naruto grinned, "So, did you a Euro Hinata-chan?" Hinata grinned, "Arigato Naruto-kun." For some reason, Hinata felt a little rewarded today, and she tried to flee by saying, "NN Naruto, I have T.T.Tob somewhere," but something grabbed her hand. Before Hinata could even ask, Naruto grabbed her and said, "Hinata, Chana Euro, there's all Euro Festival T. Tonight and IW." Wa Euro was wondering if Naruto tried to speak, but Hinata saw what he was saying and became enraged, turning red. "NN Naruto area Euro, are you asking me on a Euro date?" Naruto nodded his head, his heart beating fast and loud that it was surprising how no one could hear it. It seemed like hours between the two as they kept staring at one another until, "Hi, I would love." As Naruto put on a big smile and said, "Great, I'll see you tonight, okay?" Hinata simply nodded, smiling, never happier in her life. What could have been a perfect moment was cut short when someone said, "So you two are finally going out? Just so you know, I'm telling Kasen and Atusan," Hanabi said with a smug expression on her face as the two preteens turned to face her. When Hinata and Naruto heard this, they both thought, "That little brat." Naruto had asked Hinata out on a date an hour earlier. Since then, he had devoted most of his time to browsing clothes stores in search of a suitable outfit for this momentous occasion. He committed the most fundamental shinobi error while perusing the various types of kimonos. "What are you doing here, Naruto?" a voice asked, and he dropped his defenses. When Naruto looked back and saw his father standing there, he went white. "Hayatu-san, what are you doing here?" Naruto said nervously as he greeted his father. "I could ask you the same thing, Naruto. After all, this store only sells clothing for special occasions, like all Euro date to a festival." Seeing that Naruto was tense at those 4 words, Kakashi smirked under his mask and said, "Now, unless you're planning on going to the festival with a date, I see no reason to be here, Naruto." Naruto was now perspiring because he knew his father was going for the kill. "Why, Naruto, you wouldn't happen to be planning on asking a girl to the festival, would you?" And he gave his son his famous eye smile. As his father decided to make fun of him, Naruto's face suddenly turned red with embarrassment. While little Naruto is starting to notice girls now, how they grow up so fast. Naruto tried his best to hide his embarrassment from his father, who was taking pleasure in making fun of his son's romantic life in front of a packed store. All he could think about while trying to hide was, why me? Alongside Hinata was experiencing a similar issue. Although she came from a wealthy family, the issue wasn't a kimono. Rather, it was that she had too many of them to choose the ideal one. In order to see how her body would appear, she pulled out each of her kimonos and stood in front of a full body mirror, holding up a blue kimono with white blossoms on it. No, it'll draw too much attention. Maybe the yellow. No, it shows too much leg. Naruto will think I'm some kind of tramp. How about the pink one? No, it's too childish and it's too small. After throwing the other kimono to the ground, Hinata let out a frustrated sigh and held up a white kimono with red flames on the back. Maybe this one, she said somewhat confidently, but then she said, nope, it makes your butt look big. When Hinata heard this, she turned to see a demon. Like smile from a Hanabi standing by her bedroom door. How long have you been standing there? Hinata glared at her younger sibling after noticing her sister standing there. Hanabi placed her fingers on her chin in a contemplative pose and said, you think you have enough clothes? She glanced at the enormous pile of clothing and turned back to her sister. Hum about until you tired on the 19 or the 38 outfit. I really wasn't paying attention. She rolled her eyes and turned back to face Hanabi, who said, I don't have time to play your little games, Hanabi. I have to get ready for the festival. Hanabi smiled evilly again. You mean your date with Naruto? Ni-san. Hinata blushed, but she didn't deny it. She kept glaring at her sister. Seriously though, don't wear the white one. It really does make your butt look huge, Hanabi added. Although Ni-san might find it amusing, Hinata's face flushed deeper red. Naruto isn't like that a Euro and my butt looks just fine, she said confidently, but she continued to glance over her shoulder to make sure her ass wasn't too large. As she entered her oldest daughter's room, Hyuga Aki's voice asked, what is all the shouting for? As she saw the heap of clothing on the floor, which reminded her of her and Hiashi's first date, Aki smiled at her daughter and said, Hina-chan, if you want, I would be glad to help you pick out a different outfit. Hinata grinned at this. Arigato ka-san. Aki simply smiled at the white kimono she removed from her, saying, Hinata. Chana Euro, I don't know how to say this, but this outfit makes your Euro bottom look larger than normal. Hinata's face flushed red. It does not. With Shikamaru and Choji, two boys were eating at the Akamichi barbecue and discussing current affairs when Choji finished the last of his food and asked his best friend, so Shikamaru, are you going to the festival? The Nara child simply yawned and gave him a stern look that said, no to troublesome, I'm just going to go home and sleep. Choji, how about you? Well, Choji said, a little dejectedly, my family is going to help out with the food, but that's it. I mean, there's no other reason to go unless you have a date. The plum boy hesitated. Look, Choji, Shikamaru sighed, there will undoubtedly be a girl out there who will like you for your personality rather than your appearance. Choji grinned at his friend's words and felt a little better. Thanks Shika, I'll see you later. Okay, I got to help my family out at the restaurant later. Shikamaru simply waved and dozed off on the table. All you have to do is stay who you are and be patient, and when the time comes you'll find her, okay buddy. Choji was leaving the restaurant and heading home when he heard his name being called. He turned around and saw Ino running up to him. Confused, he smiled and said to his friend, hey Ino, what's up? But something was different about Ino. She appeared to be blushing as she approached. Choji was perplexed when he noticed his friend's blonde hair blushing, so he asked him without even thinking, Ino, are you okay? You're really red. Are you sick? After that, Choji touched her head to take her temperature. As he was doing this, Ino's face turned redder as she removed Choji's hand from her head and said, I'm fine, Choji. I was wondering if we could talk somewhere private. Choji simply nodded, and the two started to walk together in the direction of a more private area. The two eventually entered a less populated area of the village where nobody was bothering them because everyone was too busy with their own affairs. Ino was still red in the face and trying to avoid making eye contact with Choji, so the two of them found a small bench to sit on and talk. After a sufficient amount of silence, Choji interrupted, asking, so what did you want to ask me, Ino? Ino inhaled deeply and gathered her courage before saying, Choji, I wanted to ask you if you had any plans for tonight. As if her hopes had been dashed, Ino looked down and said, Ia Euro Sia Euro, well sorry for bothering you if you already had plans. Choji looked at her, perplexed as to why Ino would even care about what he was doing, but she responded honestly, saying, I was going to help my family out with the food at the festival, that's about it. She started to leave, saying, sorry for bothering you, Choji. Choji glanced at his friend in confusion and could sense that she was bothered by something. Ino, hold on, what's wrong? Nothing wrong, Choji. Why do you ask? Ino faked a smile while avoiding eye contact. Ino, I've known you for a long time and I can tell when something is bothering you. So please talk to me, Shoji said, placing his hands firmly on her shoulders after spotting the lie in her voice. It's just a euro. I was wondering a euro since there's a festival. I wanted to know if a euro, Ino said, but she stopped short as another flush appeared on her face. She had heard her friend's cries and knew he wouldn't accept no. As he looked at the girl in front of him, Shoji heard what Ino was saying but still didn't understand what she was asking him to do. From what he could make out, it sounded like Ino wanted him to take her to the festival, saying, "It's almost like she's asking me out on a." Then it hit him like a ton of bricks. Shoji simply looked at her with an equal flush after the realization hit him. The truth is that Shoji had always harbored a slight crush on the blonde girl but had never taken any action because he was constantly worried that she would reject him because of his big frame or popularity. Ino turned bright red and nodded his head. Shoji returned to reality after the tremor had passed and he asked, "Ino, why would you want to go on a date with someone like me?" Ino kept her gaze fixed on Shoji and said, "Why not? You're one of the kindest people I know. You treat everyone with respect, even those who make fun of you, and you're always there to help when someone needs you and you're cute Shoji-kun." Shoji's mouth fell open when he heard that Ino had not only called him cute, but also called him kun, something she had never done before unless he had dreamed. She was about to leave when she saw that Shoji was holding her hand tightly, but before he could respond, she turned away and said, "But you already had plans, so forget I said anything, okay?" Ino looked at the young man in front of her, perplexed, as he said, "Ino-chan, would you like to go on a date with me to the festival tonight?" Despite her surprise, Ino grinned and said, "I would love to Shoji-kun." She leaned in and kissed his cheek, saying, "Pick me up around 7, okay?" She then ran away, leaving him to stand there and rub his cheek while grinning silly. Wow. Alongside Shino was gathering supplies in the village, thinking that once he was assigned to a team, he would probably be put through a test to determine whether he and his teammates were really prepared to become shinobi, but he didn't prepare anything at all. Celine.san, is there a reason you're following me? I have nothing better to do today and I thought I'd give you some company, Celine said nervously, turning her head away from Shino as if to conceal a flush. Shino simply raised an eyebrow, which made Celine anxious. "Unless a euro you don't want me around Shino.san." Celine heard the sadness in her voice and the dejected expression in her eyes, and for some reason, this bothered Shino. "No, I don't mind Celine.san." Celine grinned like a fox after hearing this and kept following him. After an hour, the two made the decision to take a nap. Shino sat on a big bench in the center of the market district, and Celine sat on his lap, enjoying the little strokes that Shino's hands made to her ears. Celine had always loved spending time with Shino, and as Naruto's partner, she loved it when Hinata did this. After enough time had passed, Celine made the decision to ask Shino the one question that had been on her mind for the past hour. Getting over her anxiety, Celine asked Shino something she thought was crucial. "Shino, are you attending the festival tonight?" When Shino heard this, he raised an eyebrow at the black fox, clearly perplexed as to why Celine would ask this question. Unable to understand the reasoning behind Celine's inquiry, Shino asked her, "Why would I?" "Well, why not? It might be enjoyable," Celine said, avoiding eye contact with him. "I don't think so," Shino said, still bewildered as he continued to gaze down at the young fox kit. Even though it was hardly noticeable, Celine could hear the sound of pain and lioness in Shino's voice. She had gotten to know Shino well and knew that he was a kind young man who respected life and nature, was well educated, calm when necessary, and respected his friends. He was also a deep and philological, well-mannered, and talented person, and at times he could even be a little romantic and attractive, capable of turning into a Sasuke fangirl if he so desired. But even though Shino had the kind of personality that would melt any woman's heart, the one thing that had prevented him from establishing any kind of relationship was his outward appearance, where everyone could see his flaws and judge him accordingly. Humans always judged people by their appearance and wealth, so Celine sighed in frustration as she considered how pitiful some people could be. Celine gave him one last look, noticing that he was still depressed, and said, "If only people could see like I do Shino-kun." Celine decided to lift Shino out of his depression by saying, "So why don't you go to the festival? Hell, you might actually enjoy yourself, maybe even find a girl." Shino laughed as well, asking, "Why, I doubt any girl would want to be around me, who knows, I might just actually have a good time." Celine smiled slightly and said, "So go already and have a good time, have some fun for a change for once you've earned it." Celine's words somehow made Shino feel better. It was odd that the only person who could truly relate to him and understand him was this strange little talking fox. Thinking he had nothing to lose, Shino had decided to go, thinking it might be fun. When Celine heard this, he almost jumped. Great. Shino gave her a strange look and said, I mean, well, have a good time. Celine then ran away from Shino, who continued to stare at the fox, thinking, what a strange fox. Unknown place outside the wall of Konoha, there was a small figure that looked like a child, with long black hair and violet eyes, pure white skin, and black clothes. He was small, but he could jump through trees with little effort, but what stood out about him was the large blood-red V on his back, with a pentagram in the middle and a dragon eating its own tail above it. As though he was following something, the child continued to move from tree to tree, pausing only to glance around, but each time he did, he had a look of pure hatred and rage on his face that no human being had ever seen. He is there, that bastard. He is the one father favors, the one who will make father whole, the one that makes me look weak. I will find him and kill him, then I will prove that I am the stronger and greatest of father's gifts. That bastard will die by my own hands and his power will make me stronger. The young murderer's eyes never left his target, the walls of Konoha, as night fell and he finally stopped and remained seated in a large tree, his face blank but his mind full of rage. Night of the festival, Naruto x Hinata. Even though Naruto had done some risky things in the past and was more anxious than he had ever been, nothing could compare to the fear he felt now that he knew he would have to face Hyuga Hashi, who, Naruto knew, was a good man and wouldn't do anything too drastic, within reason. The servant bowed to Naruto and said that Hiashi would be there shortly after Naruto entered the Hyuga compound and was shown to a small room with a table and a hot cup of tea. When they were gone, Naruto looked down at his tea with a somewhat disgusted expression on his face. He poured some blood into it for flavor and bit into his finger after making sure that one was nearby. Hiashi then appeared, and Naruto felt his heart stop. Hiashi had entered the small room with a blank, emotionless expression on his face, and he kept his eyes on Naruto, watching him for any flaw that would make him look bad. He could see that Naruto was taking this seriously, and he was dressed in a formal outfit, a black and crimson red kimono, which was not surprising given his choice of colors, and his hair was still in disarray, but that was to be expected given that Hinata had tried and failed. He also noticed that his skin was smooth and his nails were filed, indicating that he took good care of himself in terms of hygiene. Then, Hiashi sat down on the other end of the table, his face never changing as he glared at Naruto, and he sat there, never taking his eyes off his prayer and smiling, even as he watched the blonde boy writhe in terror. In reality, Hiashi trusted Naruto with Hinata's welfare more than his own, knowing that the boy loved her more than life itself and would stop at nothing to keep her safe. Nevertheless, Hiashi was still Hinata's father, and he was entitled to the one unwritten rule in the world. Thou shalt strike fear into thy daughter's boyfriend. He cleared his throat and said, Naruto-san, it has come to my attention that you are to be courting my eldest daughter. Is this inaccurate in any way, Naruto-san? Hiashi had decided that the boy had been sufficiently frightened by the silent treatment. Naruto just nodded his head, too scared to respond vocally for fear of humiliation or Hiashi's murder. Naruto-san, I hope you understand that since Hinata is the heiress of the clan, many others have tried to gain her affection, Hiashi said after a few minutes, his icy eyes never leaving Naruto. But none of them have been as close to winning her heart as you, Naruto. When Naruto heard this, he nodded his head as before, but he was secretly shocked because he had been suspecting lately that Hinata's feelings for him had evolved from friendship to something else. Naruto also had to acknowledge that he had been feeling something different tonight, and he wanted to test these feelings to find out how he truly felt about Hinata. Once he had calmed down and brought himself back to reality, he noticed that Hiashi had not finished yet. Naruto-san, while we were on the subject, I feel that I should also inform you of some rather disrupting news. Naruto panicked, but he kept his expression neutral. Hiashi, on the other hand, frowned, saying, the elders have unfortunately caught wind of this transaction and have voiced their disapproval of Ida loudly. The elders hated him because he was different, and they were always against anything or anyone that went against tradition, so it wouldn't be shocking if they had already selected a suitor for Hinata in order to prevent a female from leading the clan. Naruto heard his and started to rub his forehead in an attempt to block the impending headache. From Naruto's body language, Hiashi could tell that he had already figured out what the elders were planning and that they had already selected a possible suitor. Hiashi decided it would be best to relive the boys. Don't be afraid, Naruto. I have gotten the elders to mostly back off by telling them this date would be good for Hinata, before the tension could overwhelm him. Surprisingly, they agreed with me that it would teach her how to make responsible decisions and how to use them in the future. The elders frequently let their egos get in the way and always believed they were in control, so Naruto looked surprised but understood. When he had given Naruto enough information but he had remained silent, Hiashi calmly asked the young blonde, "So Naruto, what are your plans for my daughter for the evening, and try not to leave anything out, I'll know." The door opened to reveal Revel Aki just as Naruto was about to explain his plans for the evening with him and Hinata. The woman gave her husband a stern look and said, "Hiashi, leave the poor boy alone. You've probably scared him enough already." Naruto sighed with relief and gratitude that he had been saved. Aki entered the room grinning at the blonde, demonstrating that she would not threaten him the way Hiashi had. Hanabi, the young Hyuga, followed behind Aki, grinning at the blonde boy she thought about and hoped would one day be her brother. A second person, who was also shy, entered the room slowly, following Aki and Hanabi. Hinata inhaled deeply before entering the room, hoping Naruto would approve of her dressing attire. She said, "Hello Naruto-kun," after glancing at the blonde she had been caring for so long. With a single glance, Naruto was utterly engrossed in the image of the goddess before him, feeling his body temperature rise and his heart rate quicken as he watched Hinata emerge from the shadows and stand in front of him. At this moment, the only things in the world were him and the young woman in front of him. Hanabi decided to have some fun while the two young teens were confined to the stairs and unable to move or speak, and she looked at Hinata with a sly smile, saying, "Wow Chan, you look so good that you made Naruto. Ni-san brain dead." Hinata blushed even more when she heard her sibling's joke, but she also grinned knowing that she had turned Naruto into a drooling fool. As the adults were preoccupied, Hanabi chose to play with Naruto, and although Aki and Hiashi wanted to chastise her for her small joke, they had to concede that it was both funny and true. Expecting Naruto to blush or something, she walked over to the blonde vegetable and said, "Naruto. Ni-san, if you like seeing Ni-chan in that outfit, we can get you one just like it." Hanabi, a little irritated that she didn't get the response she wanted, started shaking Naruto by his shoulders and said, "Naruto. Ni-san, wake up. Hello Ni-san, wake up." After shouting didn't work, Hanabi tried snapping her fingers at him and waving over his eyes. Hanabi became anxious because nothing seemed to be working, thinking Naruto was seriously hurt, and the younger Hyuga turned to her sister, looking panicked, saying, "Ni-chan Euro, I think he's dead." When Hinata heard this, she walked over to the two and said, "I know that Naruto won't respond to any normal treatment, but I know exactly what to do." Hinata smiled as she stood in front of her blonde date, bringing a finger to her mouth, biting down hard enough to break the skin, and began to bleed. Once enough blood was flowing from the wound, she brought it up Naruto's mouth. In a matter of seconds, Naruto emerged from his daze and began licking the wound and the blood on Hinata's finger. As the two were doing this, Hiashi became a little upset about what he saw as inappropriate, and Aki agreed with her husband despite the fact that the two teenagers in front of her had been performing this small act of affection since they were young. It appeared to be done in private. Hanabi, on the other hand, blushed and felt hurt if all boys enjoyed doing such things. Naruto and Hinata were still being billed for their brief, intimate moment after a few minutes had passed. Before things got out of hand between the two possible lovers, Hiashi and Aki made the decision to break up. Both Naruto and Hinata blushed at this remark, feeling as if they had been caught having sex. Aki approached and took Hinata's finger out of Naruto's mouth to bring the two back to reality. Aki simply grinned and said, "Sorry you two, not before the honeymoon." Hiashi pulled Naruto back and gave him one last warning before allowing the two teenagers to eventually depart and go to the festival. "Naruto, if you hurt her in any way, I'll have you hunted down and torn into pieces, placed in a small jar, and poured into a pot of boiling oil," he whispered into Naruto's ear while holding him by the shoulder. Naruto started to perspire because he knew he could survive and regenerate after being torn to pieces, but then poured into oil that would be more painful and devious. He was given that last warning, and the two were free to go and enjoy their date, but there were other people in danger besides Naruto. Yamanaka residence Ino was grinning broadly as she and Choji left the house for the Yamanaka flower shop. Even though Choji was grinning, he could still hear Ino's father threatening to harm his young daughter. Although Inoichi was unable to physically hurt Choji, he could easily inflict psychological harm on him that was deemed inhuman in the interrogation department. Abame residence Shino waited for recognition in front of his father while wearing what the Abame considered to be formal attire. Since the Abame clan did not celebrate festivals, Shibi stared at his son, trying to figure out why Shino would dress in such a way. Shino was different from most Abame. While he was similar to himself in many aspects, There were moments when his personality resembled that of his mother, which left the clan somewhat perplexed. "You are going to the festival tonight, are you not?" Shibi asked after weighing all the possible answers. Shino simply nodded his head and said, "Hi." Shibi said, "I do not see any reason for you to attend such an event. However, I cannot see any reason for you not to go. This is why I will not stop you, but I would like you to explain why you are going." Shino nodded his head in comprehension and opened his mouth to explain, but a loud voice interrupted, asking, "Why should he have to? Isn't it obvious why the hell he is going?" When both men turned, they saw a tall woman with jet black hair that reached halfway down her back, green eyes, and tan skin. With her arms folded across her chest and a smug smile on her face, she stood close to the room's entrance. She approached Shino, put an arm around his neck, and smiled at the boy, saying, "So my little buggy decided to finally grown a pair and ask a girl out about time, boy." Shino looked at him with a hint of annoyance, but he relaxedly said, "Okazan." Shino simply sighed at his mother's antics because she was born outside the clan, but the woman who is known as Shino's mother simply smiled and said, "What's the matter, little buggy, aren't you happy to see your beloved Okazan?" She acted out more than the other clan members because of this, but Shino didn't care because he loved her and knew she was his mother. "Aw, come on, little buggy, you can't just go to a festival and just stand around where the fun that. There are plenty of food and games there to try out, not to mention some pretty girls as well." Shino simply took a deep breath and said, "Okazan, I'm going to the festival out of a friend's request, nothing more." Shino's mother simply scowled at him upon hearing this. Shino simply rolled his eyes in frustration and said, "Don't roll your eyes at me, young man." Although he didn't express it, he was obviously taken aback by how she managed to do that to him in spite of his sunglasses. Suzume. Chan, it's already been established that Shino will be attending this event, there is no reason to intimidate the boy. Suzume simply pouted at her husband and said, "Ah, you're no fun sheep." Chan, in a childish manner, realizing that this was not going to end well for Shino. Letting go of Shino, Suzume forced her to adopt a serious expression that was out of character for her. "Shino, I just want you to go have fun and open up to people," she said. With a sigh, knowing that his mother would not leave him alone, Shino agreed, "I'll try, Okazan. You can't just keep yourself bottled up all the time, you have to develop bond with others." Shino looked at his mother uncertainly since he was young. His mother had always tried to get him to be more socialized, but he never paid much attention. Suzume grinned, saying, "Good, now go and have a good time, Shino." Shino nodded, pleased that she didn't refer to him by that childish moniker. He started to leave the room, but his mother decided to play with him a little longer, saying, "Now Shino, if you do manage to get some tail while you're there, use protection, I'm not ready to be a grandmother." After leaving, Shibi looked at his wife and raised an eyebrow, saying, "Don't you think you went a little far with your teasing?" Suzume simply smiled, "No, not really, but I am glad Shino is going to the festival, he really needs a girl his life." Shibi grinned, "If he's lucky he'll meet a girl like you." Suzume simply reached up and took off his glasses, saying, "To do that all he has to do is take those beautiful eyes of his." Shibi grinned, "If he did that he would have more fangirls than the Uchiha." Suzume also laughed and gave her husband a passionate kiss. Grounds for the festival. Naruto and Hinata had just arrived at the festival grounds and were searching for things to do first. There were a lot of games and booths selling food and trinkets, and they were trying to decide what to do first and what to eat. Naruto spotted a stand that sold things that he and Hinata would both like. When Naruto pointed to a stand to get Hinata's attention, her eyes grew as big as dinner plates. "Cinnamon buns," she said softly, and she took Naruto's arm, painfully dragging him the entire distance. When they arrived, Naruto paid before Hinata could speak, and the two proceeded to watch some of the puppet shows and parades while sampling various foreign foods. Naruto saw Choji and Ino close by while they were eating by the barbecue, but what really caught his attention was that they were holding hands. Hinata chose to say, "Ino, Choji over here." Everyone turned to look at Naruto as Ino pointed a finger at him, saying, "Naruto, you just spoke more than one word at a time, since when have you been able to do that?" The four teenagers met and greeted each other after hearing their names called. So Naruto finally decided to ask the Hyuga. "I'm out," Ino said with a smile, and Naruto returned the smile. "So you finally decided to tell Choji you had a crush on him, it's about time," Naruto said. As Ino looked at the Hyuga, Naruto simply shrugged his shoulders and said, "Since I asked Hinata. Chan out." "Figures you do it, Hinata." "Chan," Ino said, making Hinata flush. As Ino was teasing, a third voice said, "Well, looks like almost everyone is here." Everyone turned to see a smiling Sakura, which made Ino smile at her pink blonde-haired friend. As the two parted ways, Ino spotted someone beside her and said, "Hey Sakura and Ayuro Sai." Ino ran and embraced her friend. "Why are you here?" Sai maintained a neutral expression until he put on his phony smile and said, "Hello Ino-san, I'm Sakura-chan, and we're going out tonight." Everyone was stunned and stood motionless until someone said, "Nani?" Sai misinterpreted this response and turned to Sakura, asking, "Did I do something wrong, Sakura-chan?" "No, it's just a little shocking to them since you're not really the social type, Sakura said, grinning at her date's naivete. Sakura's honest but somewhat ashamed response was, "I mean, you did ask me out to help you become more social." Sai simply stared at her in confusion. "Sakura-chan, the reason I asked you here was because Ayuro have feelings when you around and I wanted to understand them better," Sakura said. The pink-haired girl smiled and kissed Sai's cheek, causing the emotionally confused boy to blush for the first time and experience other emotions he couldn't yet comprehend. When Sakura heard this, everyone stood there with their mouths hanging open, with the exception of Sakura, who was blushing as red as Hinata. Before continuing their dates, the group decided to get together and have dinner together, stopping at Ichiraku Ramen, a small ramen shop that Naruto had been known to frequent frequently. As everyone ordered a few of their favorite dishes, Naruto ordered his customary 10 bowls with special ingrates. The teenagers discussed their future plans or their shinobi careers, and while they were all enjoying themselves, Naruto made the wise observation, "Hey, I'm surprised we haven't run into Shino yet." No one could ever look past the bugs covering his body, but everyone looked at the blonde boy with a sense of sympathy for their bug friend, knowing that Shino was a good guy who could make even Uchiha fangirl his lover. The festival's other side, AC.Who. Shino sneezed, "I doubt it, but someone must be thinking of me." He had been there for almost an hour, and nothing noteworthy had happened to him. He thought, maybe this was a waste of time, and started to walk home, but he wasn't paying attention to where he was going and bumped into someone, knocking them both to the ground. No one seemed to notice that he was even there, and it was beginning to bother him. After getting up and starting to dust himself off, Shino was going to apologize to the person he had knocked over, but they beat him to it with the words, "You jerk, why the hell don't you watch where you going, baka?" Shino turned to face the girl he had knocked over, who had long black hair and eyes, a cute face, and was about his age. The girl accepted Shino's offer to help her up and jumped off the ground, landing in his face. Shino was clearly upset about the girl's behavior, asking, "What's the big idea, jerk, attacking an innocent young girl in the middle of the night? What are you, some kind of pervert?" Shino simply stood there in complete shock. Shino simply blinked and replied, Ayuro, I apologize for running into you." The girl continued to stare at him with a displeased expression, asking, "Hey baka, aren't you going to say something or hell anything?" The girl simply replied, "Kind of a half." Asked, "Wait, I'm sorry, but I guess it will do." Shino nodded and started to leave, but he was stopped when someone touched his shoulder. "What kind of sorry excuse of a man are you anyway?" Shino looked around and saw that it was the girl from before. She was angry and asked, "Where do you think you're going, asshole?" Shino didn't know who she was and would have asked if she had given him the chance. "You just knock a girl down, give a half asked and just plain pathetic apology and just walk off." Shino had not anticipated hearing the girl insult him this evening, and he was unable to even begin to formulate a response to her remarks. Despite Shino's best efforts to reply, "Luka Euro, don't what I say." The girl continued to stare at him after he had rambled on for a long enough time. He responds with, "Look, you saying you're sorry isn't going to do a damn thing, so Euro, how about taking me out to dinner or something?" This was a pretty, no beautiful girl who wanted a dinner almost like a Euro, like a date, he said out loud, leaving Shino stunned. The girl simply rolled her eyes and said, "Of course, like a date, baka, what else would you call it?" Shino was unsure of how to react as she leaned forward and smirked, saying, "Of course you have to pass my qualifications, of course." She blushed because of the intimacy between the two, and he said, "L. Like W. What?" with some nervousness. The dark-haired girl smirked even more, saying, "Like being a good kisser for one thing." Shino was shocked and about to respond when the girl pulled down the piece of his clothing that was covering his mouth and kissed him directly on the lips. Everything stopped for Shino when she kissed him, but he was certain that he liked what she was doing to him, even though he didn't know her name. When the two parted ways, Shino, for once, was at a loss for words, and the girl simply blushed and said, "Well, cutie, you passed all my inspections and then some." Shino simply stood there in a daze, and the girl laughed, "The name is Saia." "So what your name, cutie?" Shino managed to speak again and replied, "S. Shinoa Euro Abame Shino." Saia simply grinned. Well, Shino-kun, let's go and get some dinner then, and Shino didn't resist. The Church of Alexander standing on his platform, Alexander Lawton gazed at his devoted and adored supporters. The people prayed while sitting on long benches with their hands clasped together, hoping that their words would be heard by God and grant them wisdom and joy. Alexander stood wearing pricey apparel and jewelry that he had bought with the most kind donations from the public. He rose above the whispers with a grin on his face. My fellow followers, am I glad that you have made your way here to evening prayer instead of going to this festival of vile heathens and temptations. In these hours our focus must always remain faithful to our Lord. At this time I would like to give thanks to two of our most devout followers who have given us consent updates about the vile and evil devil child. Making sure he had everyone's attention, he said, at this time. Everyone frowned and thought of the blonde monster that was cursing their village. My fellow followers, the time will come when we will spill the blood of the bastard heathens that plague this village. Soon the bastard devil child will be put down like the beast it is, and our golden age will begin, he said, recognizing that all of his followers were hostile towards the boy. Before we begin any meetings tonight, we should give thanks to those who were able to see the light of God. They have given us much information about the demon and the heathen shinobi, and we should give thanks to our two most loyal of members, Mr. Mizuki, Mr. Kiba. Please step forward, Alexander said, raising her hand once more as the followers cheered. Both Mizuki and Kiba stood before Alexander with their heads lowered in respect for their leader after hearing their names called. They said, "It is an honor to serve our Lord." For one reason or another, the Forest of Death was typically off limits. Receiving survival training at the most extreme levels is the only true reason someone would enter such a facility. Even high-ranking shinobi were prohibited from entering the forest because of the extremely dangerous plants and animals that called it home. These were the Genet snakes that lived in the actual forest. Although some animals were larger or more lethal than large reptiles, snakes dominated most of the land and had not faced many obstacles to alter that. With the exception of one specific snake that was dead on the forest floor. One could tell from what was left of the creature that it struggled before being killed, but that wasn't enough because a significant portion of its flesh was missing, revealing signs of both claw and tooth marks. A dark-haired child with a red V on his back was kneeling over the rotting corpse, viciously biting into a big piece of meat that had been ripped from his victim. The boy sensed that something was following him into the forest, waiting for him to drop his defenses and attack. Unfortunately, he struck first in an attempt to have fun and kill whoever was pursuing him. To his dismay, though, the supposed predator was so feeble and slow that killing it only made him feel bored, angry, and hungry. He was thus enjoying the taste of a raw snake meat while preparing his attack once he had located his victim. He felt his anger rising inside of him once more as he reflected on why he had come. Father, as the boy called him, had explained his purpose in life before he made the decision to come here alone. His sole purpose in life was to serve the father, and he detested the fact that the father only saw him as a tool to be replaced when it was no longer needed. He was aware of his purpose and the reason he was created, but he was unable to accept it and would not live such a life. Even though he couldn't hurt father directly, he could always find a way to show that he was more than just a tool and that he was better than everyone else. Indeed, this child in whom the father had shown such interest would die very soon, and everyone would be aware of his wrath. Grounds for the festival together with their other classmates who were out on dates, Naruto and Hinata were seated and savoring the assortment of food being offered. While the boys were taking in the sights and the cuisine, the girls were chatting about various topics. Hey, isn't that Shino, and I think he has a lady friend, Ino, who is known for noticing things that shouldn't be noticed, said with a demon-like smile. When Hinata and Sakura heard this, they turned to face Ino, not really believing her because it was unlikely that Shino would attend a festival, and even less likely to do so with a girl. However, what they saw was, in fact, their bug-loving friend wearing formal attire and holding a girl's hand, a pretty one, at that. As they rushed in the direction of the couple, the girls concluded that there was only one important thing to do. Get every juicy detail. Actually, the boys were curious about who Shino was with and how he got such a pretty girl because he wasn't much of a social type, but here he was, holding hands with her, and they just shook their heads at the things the girls had done, with one muttering, troublesome. They couldn't help but wonder what was happening with the Abame as they looked at the scene in front of them. Alongside Shino had no idea what was going on. He was trying to enjoy himself while wandering around the festival one minute, and the next he knew, he was going out on a date with an odd girl named Saia. In all honesty, he was having fun with the odd and sometimes aggressive girl. She was a good kisser, to be honest, but after he tried to apologize after bumping into Saia, She kissed him and made him go on a date. She then seemed to genuinely enjoy listening to him as she asked him about his hobbies, likes, and dislikes as well as his future goals. They eventually began playing some of the games, but he wasn't very interested in them. At least until Saia broke his fingers when he attempted to silence her and accused the man operating the booth of cheating, forcing him to confess to his infidelity. Shino was then spotted strolling around with an incredibly big teddy bear, and Saia simply smirked and said, "Arigato Shino.kun." Shino only had a plain rice ball and chewed it gently when the two finally stopped at a well-known stand to grab a bite to eat. Saia, on the other hand, was tearing into some fried eels like a ravenous animal, but it was kind of funny when one of the eels was hard to tear and he still laughed despite her growling like a dog. "Nani?" she asked as she realized she still had a piece of eel hanging from her mouth. Despite her childish behavior, Shino simply shook his head and found himself enjoying this strange girl's company. He opened his mouth to speak, but was interrupted by the sound of laughter. A group of girls in fancy, expensive-looking clothes were standing behind the couple, and they couldn't help but laugh out loud as they stared at them. The group's leader, a woman, was wealthy, as evidenced by her exquisite and pricey kimono and numerous pieces of pricey golden jewelry. She also wore a lot of makeup, which, although it made her appear more beautiful, did not cover up her haughty, noble features. Shino was spotted by the noble, who also saw who he was with and that he belonged to the Abame clan. Many other upper-class types felt it was necessary to make fun of someone like Shino, so even though she had nothing personal against the bug people, she did enjoy making fun of those she viewed as beneath her. The noble called for his services when he noticed a waiter walking by. When the waiter reached the noble's table, he inquired about her needs. "Yes, your fine establishment appears to have a large roach problem. Will you do something about it?" The noble grinned. The noble, on the other hand, was enjoying watching the waiter perspire as she said, "Hi, I would like if you would get rid of that disgusting insect over that's trying and failing, I might add, to pass itself off as a human." The waiter didn't understand what she was talking about and was beginning to get nervous as almost everyone's attention was shifting from their own food towards him. The waiter turned to the table she was looking at and then noticed Shino sitting there, and she started to perspire even more. It was common for members of the Abame clan to be made fun of for their special talents, and although they either moved on from the incident or stopped caring about it altogether, it still hurt, especially for some of the younger members of the clan. Shino could hear everything that was said out loud, and he knew that something like this was inevitable. It took all of Saya's self-control not to kill the bitch across the room, and she had no right to make fun of Shino in any way when she didn't even know anything about him. Saia could tell by her appearance that she was rich and likely spoiled, and she wouldn't give anything for the sake of breaking the bitch's face, but she wouldn't do that because it would only make Shino feel even more ashamed and would only serve to validate the noble bitch's right. With that thought in mind, Saia composed herself, started to savor her meal, and did everything she could to block out the nobly a euro. That is, until she heard the noble say out loud, and considering the tramp he came in with, that it must really be lacking in taste. Saia's eyes reddened, and she thought, "Oh, that's it." Back with the noble, she was making up jokes about Shino that she thought would make some people laugh. She didn't even notice Saia approaching until she was in front of her, at which point she saw her standing there with an odd smile on her face and asked, "Can I help you, tramp? I mean, look at the way the little bitch eats and wears, one has to wonder if she grew up raised by rabid beast." Saia clenched her teeth but did nothing in response to the tramp's comment, indicating that she either didn't notice or didn't really care. "I bet that the little bitch wallows around in the muck and eats out whatever garbage cans she can find, but that's to be expected from someone who even bothers with a bug freak like the Abame." The noblewoman then started laughing out loud and even invited others to join in. When the noble ceased laughing, she saw that Saia was still in front of her. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could blink, Saia's hand was at her throat, lifting her into the air. Saia abruptly threw the noble into a tank of live eels while the noble was struggling to breathe and trying to break free from her hold. Many of the other couples at the table started to leave after witnessing this because they were afraid of becoming involved. The noble, however, tried to get to her feet but hissed in agony because glass fragments were still all around her. Something struck her back just as she was about to stand up, forcing her to ground once more. As she turned to face whatever had struck her, she noticed a sinister-looking Saia standing atop her, carrying two big buckets bearing the words, "Open wide bitch," and "Wasabi." Beyond the eatery afterwards, Saia was leading the way and Shino was right behind her as they left the restaurant. For a long time, neither of them spoke, and Saia avoided looking at him. When he grew tired, she would either ignore him or move on more quickly. After a while, Shino grew tired of the silence and, in a rare emotional outburst, confronted Saia, making her look at him and asking, "Saia, say something, anything, please." Saia remained silent, a little taken aback by Shino's behavior and saddened by the rage and frustration in Shino's voice, which caused tears to well up and spill out of her eyes. When Shino saw this, he started to feel bad about what he had done. "I'm a Euro MS. Sorry Shino.kun ID. D. Didn't mean for this happen a Euro I." Saia collapsed to her knees, crying before she could finish her sentence. Shino was taken aback by this. One moment, Saia was a strong, self-reliant woman, and then, with just a few words, he had transformed her into a crying, defenseless child. Shino didn't like seeing the girl in this state. It didn't suit a girl who was so vibrant and innocent, and worse, he was the one who started it. On the spur of the moment, Shino lowered himself to her level, embraced her, and said, "Saia, I didn't mean to yell at you and I'm not angry with you at all, so please stop crying." Saia heard this, finally paused, and looked into Shino's glasses before saying, Euro I'm sorry for all this Shino. Kuna Euro I didn't want to embarrass myself but Euro I just couldn't stand what that bitch was saying Euro she had no right." Shino raised an eyebrow at her fervently defending him. He had only known Saia for a few hours, and it was utterly nonsensical that she would go to such lengths to defend him. However, he discovered that he was enjoying it. Saia and Shino remained motionless and silent for a while, simply maintaining eye contact. Saia thought Shino would remain silent because he was still upset with her. To Saia's astonishment, he only put his arms around her and held her close while saying, "Thank you, Saia." Saia's face flushed dark red, thinking, "This is so nice." Shino took Saia's hand and smiled at the red-haired girl, saying, "Come on, Saia. Chan, we still have the rest of the festival to enjoy." Saia objected, holding on to Shino's hand tightly, saying, "Oh and Saia Euro no more wasabi okay." Saia simply laughed at this, "Got it," and Shino. The Abame looked at her and said, "I didn't think you could be son aggressive Euro I like it." "Hey Shino," was said by three voices that Shino recognized well as he noticed three of his classmates approaching him. Ino was the first to speak when they arrived, saying, "Hey Shino, surprised to see you here and with a friend as well." Hinata chose to intervene before Ino got out of control, saying, "Shino.san, it's good to see you here and with a friend as well," in a courteous manner. After noticing that Saia was staring at him, Shino said, "And this is Saia, my date for the evening." Shino was blushing because he was caught in this situation without a plan, but he addressed himself in his usual composed and collected way, saying, "Hinata.san, Sakura.san, Ino.san, it is good to see you three as well." Sakura, Ino, and Hinata. "Nani, your date?" The dark-haired girl simply blushed. "Yeah, his date, the name is Saia, by the way," while the other three girls were giving Saia a visibly perplexed look. "Pleased to meet ya." Naruto and the others were standing there, wondering who this girl was, but the girls were still too stunned to respond. Shino approached his bug-loving friend and said, "Hey Shino, glad to see you here." Shino looked at his blonde friend and raised an eyebrow, saying, "Naruto. Sana Euro, since when can you speak properly?" When Naruto heard this, he looked at all of his friends, who were trying their hardest not to look at him. "Why is everyone making a big deal on how I talk? Is it really that surprising?" he asked. Everyone took this into consideration and concluded that it would be best if Naruto simply sighed in frustration and said, "Well, since we're together, why don't we attend the rest of the festival as a group?" They were about to continue when Naruto felt a shiver go up his spine as a strong force appeared in the distance and began to approach him. This force was odd because it resembled his dark chakra but was also entirely different from it. To be honest, this one's chakra felt enraged and bloodlust filled, and it was directly approaching them. "Everyone, get behind me now," Naruto said gravely as he turned to face his friends. As they moved behind him, Naruto cut open the palm of his hand and covered it with dark chakra, spreading out and foaming a barrier around the group just as something struck the shield. Everyone followed instructions knowing that Naruto wouldn't say to do something like that unless absolutely necessary. When the barrier was struck, many of the nearby buildings were damaged, some were on fire, and people were screaming or lying in the street with serious injuries from the attack. Naruto felt the same presence from before, someone who was similar to him but different, and they were very close. He stared at the devastation around him, wondering who could have done this and why. He was somewhat like him, and he saw the person who had attacked and attempted to kill him. Shaking off the shock, he turned to face his assailant and asked, "Who are you and why did you attack me?" Innocent and perplexed, the figure simply tiled his head before replacing it with a demonic grin that said, "Me, I am Wrath and I'm here to kill you. The child, who was now known as Wrath, stood there with a manic smile that would not go away and eyes that would only look at his victim. There was a strange sense of familiarity with this creature as well, as if he and it were related in a dark way, but it didn't really matter why he was doing all of this. What mattered was keeping his friends safe and this thing away from him. Naruto kept his eyes on his enemy, not knowing who, what, or even why this boy would attack him. Hinata, who was the worst of the two, was genuinely concerned about the lone young man in front of her and sighed in concern as they were having their showdown. However, this was a mistake because the blonde briefly looked away from his enemy to see if anything was amiss, and when he turned back to face him, the boy was gone. Wrath was kneeling directly in front of Naruto, his hand stretched back glowing with an evil dark red chakra that was glowing around his arm. In a matter of seconds, Wrath's arm became sharp and edged like a blade, and he took one step forward, managing to make a clean slash across Naruto's chest. Blood flew through the air and even stained the ground as the blonde boy appeared to be in shock at what had happened, while Wrath had a childlike joy. That quickly changed when Naruto's shaky, pained expression changed to a grin that resembled Wrath's own. Got you. The boy's chest wound healed instantly, and Naruto took him by the arms before his own black chakra quickly engulfed the two and vanished. Everyone who witnessed the incident either ran in fear or just stood there, unsure of what to do. With the exception of Hinata, who had already activated her Byakugan and was looking for the blonde and the strange boy who had attacked them for whatever reason, Naruto's friends were as perplexed as the other villagers and unsure of what to do. Eventually, she noticed something glowing in the eastern forest and made the decision to begin there first. All she needed to do was figure out how to get there without Shino stopping her. When Shino saw this, he put his hand on her shoulder and said, Hinata-san, you might want to reconsider if you're thinking about looking for Naruto and that boy. Hinata-san, you saw the power behind that boy, it was almost exactly Naruto's, making him just as dangerous and deadly. Hinata remained silent at this point, and despite her desire to argue, she could see the logic in Shino's words as he continued. Also, whatever the reason, the boy seemed determined to fight Naruto to the death, and your being there would only serve as a distraction. Hyuga gazed at the bud user and was about to argue, but Shino beat her to it. Finding Kakashi-san or Rin-san and enlisting their help in this situation is the best course of action. Shino. Kuna Yuro, I understand and I agree with you. Hinata sighed in defeat as she turned to face her Abame friend, even though she could see the reasoning behind his reasoning and couldn't just watch helplessly. After nodding his head in satisfaction that everything was going well, the young Abame started to leave, saying, Come, we need to find Kakashi and Rin Yuro-san before it's too. Shino was unable to finish his sentence because he felt a hard piece of his back that left him numb. When he hit the ground, he realized that he was unable to move any part of his body at all, and he looked up at the young Hyuga, his face showing surprise. Sorry, Shino-kun, Buddha Yuro Ia Yuro need to find Naruto-kun, Hinata said, looking down grimly, and the young Hyuga air fled. One irritated thought crossed Shino's mind as he lay there. She has been spending way too much time with Naruto. Saia was standing over him, grinning evilly, when he saw that someone had grabbed his shoulders and flipped him onto his back. Well, since you can't move Shino-kun, I guess this is time where I seduced you, C.No-kun, he said. Shino was growing increasingly anxious as Saia's hand passed his stomach and was approaching his crouch, but before anything could happen, Saia stopped and smiled even more broadly, saying, Just kidding, Sino-kun. Shino's eyes were wide open and trembling, making it difficult to tell if Saia was kidding or not. It didn't help that the girl was sitting on top of him, her hand on his chest, and she was pulling farther and farther down his body. Shino let out a sigh of relief when he saw that Saia's hand had started to glow with a green aura of chakra surrounding it. She put her hand back on his chest and the numbness he was experiencing gradually subsided. As Saia worked on her magic, she noticed that the young girl was staring at him with suspicion. You're probably wondering how I know high-level healing techniques, she said, smiling. Sino remained silent and continued to stare at her, saying, Well, a Euro girl's got her secrets, Shino-kun. He didn't take it well, but Saia simply smiled, adding, But if you want Shino-kun, you can give me a private integration later. As Saia continued working, Shino blushed at the comment and said, Once I'm done, I'll go after Hinata to make sure she is okay while you continue to recover. Saia giggled again as he saw the stunned expression on Shino's face, saying, I still kidding, Shino-kun. What kind of girl do you take me for? Shino remained silent, a little afraid that Saia would use it against him again, so he just lay there and waited for her to finish. While she worked, she was sitting on Shio's pelvis and shifting back and forth, which caused some parts of his body to react. It didn't help that Saia kept laughing while she worked. Alongside Naruto, Naruto was trying to breathe heavily while standing motionless high in the trees. The majority of his clothing had been destroyed, and he was covered in cuts and bruises. His opponent had hardly perspired since he had last seen him, and he was currently low on blood and energy. He inhaled deeply and turned to face the boy he had been fighting with on the ground floor. He was clearly searching for him and approaching, but what really struck me about this boy was the crimson aura that surrounded him and the evil malice that pervaded it despite their distance from one another. This boy, whoever he was strong, dangerous, and made it obvious what he wanted to achieve: the Naruto death.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.